Chapter 241. Large and Small Skirk had complete confidence in Bai Shu. After all, Bai Shu was a 100,000-year spirit beast who had taken human form and had refined the shark pearl of the devil spirit great white shark king. Her origin was profound and her talent exceptional. She had originally been an extremely rare ice attribute mutant spirit beast, and after assuming human form, she retained that ice affinity, perfect for learning Skirk's martial techniques, since Skirk herself specialized in ice-based combat. "Yes, I will study hard, teacher." Bai Shu curled her fists, her eyes blazing with determination. She called Skirk teacher because of the human stories her adoptive mother had told her as a child. In her mind, anyone who taught her a skill was a teacher. "First, let's get you dressed." Skirk didn't make a big deal out of the title. Having another disciple was amusing to her. Still, seeing the small, childlike figure standing naked before her made her eyelids twitch. Bai Shu suddenly realized belatedly that she had no clothes after transforming into a human body. Though a spirit beast by nature, she had developed sentience early and longed for human society, so she shared human modesty. Fortunately, there was no one else around. Only Skirk witnessed the scene, or else Bai Shu would have been utterly mortified. "We should leave. The ocean isn't good for your development. Go to the Douluo Continent," Skirk said. She condensed a makeshift garment from purple energy, slipped it over Bai Shu, then waved her left hand. A purplish-black spatial vortex opened, its rim shimmering with unstable space. "Go." With a stunned look, Bai Shu was grabbed by the shoulder and hurled into the vortex. "Ah!" she cried as her figure vanished. Skirk clapped, satisfied with the smoothness of the action, and stepped into the vortex after her. In Haiyuan City, Lu Jingming, the hidden architect behind the Holy Grail War, watched events unfold with a constant eye. The Holy Grail had just reported that someone had become a master and had quickly summoned a servant. "That fast? Skirk, your luck's unbelievable," Lu Jingming muttered, surprised as he inspected the virtual screen before him. He had only just had the Black Tower encode the Grail's rules into the planet. The war had barely been announced. He hadn't expected the first master chosen by the planet to appear so quickly. The image the system pulled in showed the childlike figure with sky-blue hair. "Bai Shu, huh? The female lead of the 4th generation. Makes sense," he said, not too surprised. Black Tower folded her arms, face full of disdain, as she glared at Lu Jingming. The memory footage from the Earth veins had caught Bai Shu in her newly transformed state, completely unclothed. "You have a perverted hobby," Black Tower accused, disdain thick in her voice. Lu Jingming spread his hands defensively. "I can't be blamed. She didn't put on clothes herself, and besides, she's a little child, no breasts, no curves. There's nothing to look at, not compared to you." "What do you mean, not compared to me? Is mine very small?" Black Tower's eyes sharpened at once. She glared. Lu Jingming, embarrassingly unconcerned, cast a quick glance at her chest and confirmed it. No padding, decidedly small. "Your stare is rude, and it makes me very unhappy. Do you want me to hit you?" she snapped, purple-painted nails digging into her palms. "Actually, being small has some advantages. The feel should be pretty good." Lu Jingming teased, oblivious to the danger. Black Tower's expression froze. She pointed a finger at him, and the surrounding space fractured like a giant mirror shattering. Lu Jingming, taken completely off guard, was snatched into a spatial rift. Above Haiyuan City, a dark tear flashed, then disappeared. A meteor-like figure plunged from the sky and crashed straight into a tall building at the city center with the sound of glass and stone shattering. Enforcement guards rushed to the scene. This building was Moon Sea Tower, converted from the old city lord's mansion and now the political heart of Haiyuan City. Everyone inside was important, some even the future mistresses of the city. The guards on duty were tense. Any mishandling of the situation could have grave consequences. "Stand back, evacuate, and secure the perimeter. Send people up for repairs afterward," a calm voice ordered. Keqing appeared and leaned against the doorway as the guards prepared to move. The commander, a Spirit Saint grade officer, immediately bowed. Keqing wasn't only a core figure in land management and construction, she was also one of the executives of the newly formed Fools organization, though she didn't appear especially eager to hold that title. Rumor had it she was close to the city lord and might become one of Haiyuan City's future mistresses. No one wanted to offend her, so the guards stepped back and obeyed respectfully. Keqing returned to the damaged office to find chaos, shattered windows, splintered furniture. Lu Jingming was getting up in disarray, brushing dust from his clothes. Keqing suppressed a smile and leaned on the doorframe. "What? You offended Black Tower and she reacted like that? You must be something special." "It's sort of that, but not like you think. I really wasn't wrong. Little ones don't have anything to see. And anyway, I like both," Lu Jingming said helplessly. Despite how it sounded, he genuinely felt there were advantages to smallness. Some things were easy to handle one-handed. Keqing's eyes flicked at her chest and she sneered. Black Tower was being too lenient. Lu Jingming straightened, uninjured. Black Tower could threaten him with spatial rifts, but she wasn't going to truly harm him. He walked to the broken window and looked out over Haiyuan City, almost reverent. The city had changed beyond recognition since the Soul Master competition. The land had expanded, skyscrapers now pierced the sky, modern transport flowed through the streets, and communication devices had become widespread. Mobile phones capable of long-distance communication circulated freely. With Black Tower's black tech and the network she'd helped establish, Haiyuan City had leapt many steps ahead, more advanced than some modern cities, Lu Jingming remembered. The whole Douluo Continent was beginning to feel the ripple of that development. Nearby cities were already adopting the latest soul tools, and even some conservative nobles were slowly being coaxed into accepting progress, thanks to secret promotion behind the scenes. Enough about that. Tell me straight. I'm a Liwei Qixing, and you want me to be a fool's executive? What exactly are you saying? Keqing cut to the chase. She stepped forward, one hand on the wall, pinning Lu Jingming in place. Her close proximity sent a faint, elegant scent drifting to him. Lu Jingming found himself momentarily surprised. He hadn't really noticed before how impressive Keqing's figure was, at least a B-cup, much fuller than Black Tower's. He recovered quickly and smoothed his clothes. This city owed a lot to people like Keqing and Changli, and to Black Tower's technologies. Whatever came next, Haiyuan City had already changed in ways few could have predicted. Chapter 242, To Enter or Not to Enter. Keqing had Lu Jingming backed into a corner, but she didn't notice the way he was looking at her. Gritting her teeth, she said, "I still don't understand why I was inexplicably made a fool's executive and put in command of a troop. Their equipment, uniforms, even the name, everything matches the fools from my world. It makes me want to fry you. I'm one of the Liwei Qixing. I can't stand the fools. Are you serious, or are you joking?" "Aching, calm down. These fools aren't the same as yours. Only the name overlaps. And Haiyuan City really doesn't have many suitable candidates for the executive post right now. I just need you to fill in temporarily." Lu Jingming watched Keqing's chest rise and fall with indignation and hurried to explain. He dared not admit that a little mischief had played a part. After all, Keqing wasn't the only one inexplicably appointed. Ningguang, Ganyu, and Ye Miko had been named fool's executives too. He could not let this look like his prank. The scene that would follow that confession would be more terrifying than a Shura field. "Never mind. Find someone to take over as soon as possible. I don't want to be known as a fool's executive. It makes me uncomfortable. Why can't you give me tasks under the Liwei Qixing title instead?" Keqing said it with resignation. She understood Haiyuan City was in a phase of rapid expansion and that people were needed everywhere. She herself juggled multiple posts and was constantly busy, so she couldn't blame Lu Jingming too harshly. A fool's executive wasn't a meaningless title. It carried real authority. The holder could command a powerful fool's troop and access many advanced spirit tools in Haiyuan City. Only someone both trustworthy and capable could handle it. Knowing that, and despite her reluctance, she did not refuse outright and reluctantly accepted the appointment. "I knew you were the best, Aching." Lu Jingming's voice softened. A trace of guilt flickered across his face. He admitted to himself that while there had been mischief, the main reason was a lack of available personnel. Though many had pledged to Haiyuan City, those truly reliable, Ye Wuqing and others, weren't ready yet. Time was needed for people like Ye Guyi, Lan Susu, and the Luoluo twins to mature. When they did, the pressure on Keiqing and the others would ease. Haiyuan City's development was relentless, and its hunger for talent boundless, but for now the situation remained manageable. "You've worked hard, King." His tone was unusually gentle. He raised a hand and brushed Keiqing's cheek with surprising tenderness. The softness of the gesture sent a tremor through her. For a moment, she let herself close her eyes and enjoy the warmth of being acknowledged. Lu Jingming didn't miss the signal. He took a step closer and kissed her. The kiss was brief but intimate. Keiqing felt a jolt of complicated emotion, part flattery, part alarm. When Lu Jingming tried to press further, she pulled back immediately, eyes wide and firm. "No, this isn't the right time or place," she said, breathless and resolute. "You're not even an adult yet. That's a line I won't cross. I can't break that. How would I face the others later? Even Jean Lexuan hasn't crossed that line. Not ever. I won't either." Lu Jingming blinked, a little chastened. He had let himself be carried away, but he respected her boundary. "All right, I won't push." Keiqing's expression softened when she saw how hard he was trying to restrain himself. She hesitated, then stepped back. "Not here either," she added, shaking her head. Lu Jingming's face lit up at her concession. "Okay then." He activated Thousand Realm, one ride, and using its spatial authority, transported them to Keiqing's room. Herta, master of Thousand Realm, one ride, immediately detected the use of its spatial power. Apart from herself, only Lu Jingming could draw on its authority. Seeing the destination was Keiqing's room, Herta's eyes narrowed, and she let out a cold, humorless laugh. "Heh, men." Her amusement, however, was brief. Herta's attention was fixed on something far larger, the problem of detonating the black hole. She was keenly interested in the highest-grade energy of this world, the power of chaos. With Lu Jingming's tacit consent, she had already established contact with the 6 great divine realms. Both sides had communicated and stood ready to help the 6 great divine realms burst the black hole open and create a passage. Her plan was audacious. Using Thousand Realm, One Ride's spatial authority, she intended to align the coordinates of a distant galaxy's star with the black hole and then detonate that star. The resulting stellar explosion, while not powerful enough to destroy the black hole, might be sufficient to open a passage through it. Herta's preparations were well underway when Lu Jingming and Keiqing dealt with their own delicate question of boundaries. Far away, across the ocean, a different crisis was unfolding. The Demon Emperor, who had just annihilated the Demon Soul Great White Shark clan and taken wounds from the sea god's divine force, had run into trouble in the open sea. Hundreds of spirit tool warships, steel behemoths with disciplined formations, had hemmed him in. Spirit masters and soul conductors stood ready on every deck. On the lead ship stood a young man with long blue hair, holding a sea blue helmet that pulsed with divine force. Invisible strands of power snared the Demon Emperor. "Deep sea demon whale," said a commander in a low voice. No wonder the sea god helmet reacted so strongly. Chen Huijie, the current clan chief of the sea god family and the sea god Douluo, watched the Demon Emperor's massive form with a solemn look. As descendants of the first sea god, Poseidon, the family had long dwelt on Sea God Island. After sea god Tangsan ascended, they withdrew into isolation, but their devotion never wavered. Sea god Tangsan had bestowed the sea god helmet on them as a founding legacy. 4,000 years earlier, when the Sun-Moon Continent collided with the Douluo Continent and the Sun-Moon Empire, and the 3 great empires erupted into war, the sea god family had considered intervening to suppress the Sun-Moon Empire. But sea god Tangsan issued a divine oracle advising them not to interfere. It would be more beneficial for the Douluo Continent if they stayed out. They obeyed and remained in the background, ceding a moment of glory to others. Then, just days ago, the sea god helmet, enshrined and quiet for centuries, had begun to stir. As a limit Douluo whose spirit power was the great sea, Chen Huijie felt that strange oceanic aura keenly. With the sea god helmet in hand, within the boundless ocean his combat power rivaled that of a demigod. Only true divinities would be his match. Generations of sea god family chiefs had been limit Douluo, wielding the sea god helmet as their heritage. That legacy was the source of the confidence the family once had. Confidence strong enough that, had sea god Tangsan's divine oracle not restrained them, they might have stepped forward during the ancient wars and altered history. Chapter 243, Sea God Family. The Sea God family had worshipped the Sea God helmet for tens of thousands of years, and this was the first time the helmet had registered such a strong anomaly. Chen Huiji did not hesitate. He immediately led the family's elite forces out to sea, following the direction indicated by the divine artifact. Only when they encountered the demon emperor in a narrow channel did Chen Huiji understand why the sea god helmet had reacted and why he had felt that strange premonition. The deep-sea demon whale and the sea god family were ancient enemies. From the first sea god, Poseidon, to Tang San of the second generation, what generation had not fought the deep-sea demon whale? Chen Huiji also clearly remembered that the demon emperor had come from the demon shark sea area, the territory of the sea god's mount, the demon soul great white shark clan. Deep-sea demon whale, what did you do to the demon soul great white shark clan? Chen Huiji demanded, clutching the sea god helmet as he hovered above the void, his gaze hard and wary. An ominous premonition throbbed in his chest. The blood on the demon emperor, the wounds she bore. She had clearly been in fierce combat with the demon soul great white shark clan. The divine force lingering in her injuries showed that the enemy had employed sea god divine power during the fight. Demon soul great white shark. Ha! There are no more demon soul great white sharks in this world. The demon emperor laughed, a sound that was half triumph, half madness. She had wiped out the clan, and the centuries of built-up hatred had finally found release. At the same time, that victory fanned a ravenous flame of vengeance inside her. How dare you slaughter the sea god's mount? Do you seek divine punishment? Chen Huiji's face darkened. The demon soul great white shark clan, as the sea god's mount, had an extraordinary place in the sea god family's esteem. Divine punishment? Let your sea god try it. Let him punish me himself. The demon emperor's voice was wild. She had confirmed the information Mobius had provided. Tang San was occupied and could not deal with her. Unrestrained at last, the hatred she had borne for ages surged forth. Any thought of future reckoning from Tang San had long been discarded. After so many years of holding back, she would seize any opportunity like a starving tiger. You're courting death, Chen Huiji exploded. To blaspheme the sea god so openly enraged the entire sea god family. He waved his right hand, and over 1,000 spirit tool battleships opened fire in unison. An overwhelming barrage of spirit tool shells and focused beams fell like rain, streams of deadly light converging on the demon emperor. Boom after boom, the shells and rays struck her massive form. Explosions and roars mingled, echoing across the sea and shattering the ocean's calm. Flames from the blasts wrapped the demon emperor in a brief, fiery cloak. Although the sea god family lived in seclusion, they were not cut off from the wider world. They oversaw the sea and kept some contact with human society. They were not purely conservative spirit masters. They had long since realized how to adapt. 4,000 years ago, the Sun-Moon Empire's rise had nearly forced the sea god family to intervene, but Shrek Academy's power shifted the balance. Secretly, the sea god family sent members into the Sun-Moon Empire to acquire advanced spirit tool technology. Through years of effort, they learned a great deal. These 1,000-plus spirit tool battleships were the result, each packed with numerous advanced spirit tools, from powerful defensive shields to precise detection arrays to devastating offensive devices. On the open sea, the combat capability of a single spirit tool battleship rivaled a powerful spirit Douluo. 1,000 of them firing together was like a combined attack from 1,000 spirit Douluo. An assault even a 99-level limit Douluo would be loath to face head-on. But the Demon Emperor was no ordinary limit Douluo. Spirit beasts possessed bodies of incomparable toughness, far surpassing human spirit masters. She had advanced beyond a mere spirit beast. She was a ruler. At full strength, she might have shrugged off such an onslaught. Yet she had just been wounded by a sea god clone the demon soul Great White Shark clan had summoned with sea god divine force. Her injuries hadn't healed. Facing the barrage, she unleashed the power of the Ruler of Thunder, rapidly projecting an electromagnetic barrier to blunt the metal fragments from the exploding shells. Very well, you have truly enraged me. Witness the wrath of lightning. Her voice was cold and absolute. Although the sea god helmet had given her pause, and although she had not wanted to fight while wounded, Anger overrode caution. One thought consumed her. Every believer of the sea god must die. Destroying the sea god family, possessors of the sea god divine artifact, would hurt Tangsan far more than annihilating the demon soul Great White Shark clan. That would be the revenge she craved. The demon emperor transformed. A colossal deep-sea demon whale incarnation streaked like a black lightning bolt into the sky, merging into her body. With a burst of dazzling white spark, her flesh closed around terrifying lightning armor. The armor was dark purple and translucent, like crystal filled with surging liquid lightning, blue-white bioelectric light flickering within. At its joints, purplish-black scales, like those of the deep-sea demon whale, were fitted tightly, crackling with electric sparks. In the center of the chest spun a plasma vortex sphere. At its core glowed the gem of conquest, eerie and potent. 12 superconducting magnetic rings hovered behind her back, each compressing a mass of lightning so violent it seemed poised to detonate and annihilate everything nearby. Her hair had become strands of liquid mercury and lightning, the tips flaring into continuous plasma discharges. A spiraling narwhal-like spear jutted from her forehead, dancing with electric arcs. Her once crimson eyes were now blinding white, pupilless, like twin flames. A shattered whalebone mask covered her face. Ionized mist hissed from its fissures, adding to her dread presence. In that form, she was neither holy beast nor holy god. She was the incarnation of lightning itself. Lightly tapping the void with armored fingers, the demon emperor sent out an invisible electromagnetic pulse that rippled outward. Instantly, the Spirit Tool fleet froze. Though Spirit Tool battleships relied on Spirit Tool formations and spirit power, their metal components were vulnerable to electromagnetic manipulation. The Sea God family's decision to bring in a metal-laden fleet now proved a grave error. The Demon Emperor's power was more than mere lightning. She commanded electromagnetism. Metal within her influence could be seized and controlled. Sea Abyss Siphon. She opened her palm and formed an electromagnetic vortex 1,000 meters across beneath her. Like a ravenous maw, it drained the surrounding seawater, rapidly electrolyzing it into hydrogen and oxygen. Those gases ignited into blue-white lightning flames, surging outward and evaporating thousands of meters of ocean in an instant. Steam rose in vast plumes, forming a screaming, boiling cloud above the sea. "Quick, activate the Spirit Tool shields," the captains shouted. Immobilized by the electromagnetic pulse, the battleships could not maneuver and were forced to defend. Shield arrays deployed, beams of light blossoming above the roiling water to resist the explosion's force, and the razor-pressured water blades mixed into the blast. The shields held but barely against the Demon Emperor's unleashed fury. Chapter 244, Knowledge is Power. The Demon Empress's true form was a deep-sea demon whale, born with the power to command the ocean. Now she fused that power with lightning, unleashing a force beyond imagination. Although the Spirit Tool battleships reacted quickly, the combined explosions and high-pressure water blades sank many of them into the churning sea. Chen Huiji's face twisted with shock and anger. He had never expected the Demon Empress's abilities to be so devastating against Spirit Tools. He could no longer hold back. Chen Huiji was not a true demigod and had not condensed divine sense, but on this boundless sea, amplified by the divine artifact Sea God helmet, his strength was effectively demigod level. The fight had escalated into a clash between demigods. A blue divine radiance poured out like a tide and quickly covered the ocean, asserting sovereignty over the sea and instantly seizing the Demon Empress's control of the waters. The waves that had raged from the explosions began to calm under that force. That annoying divine force again. The Demon Empress's blazing white eyes flared like searchlights. 2 blinding bolts of electric light shot out and pierced through 2 unfortunate Spirit Tool battleships, reducing them to exploding fragments across the water. Sea True Form. Chen Huiji roared and activated his Spirit True Form. Ocean currents surged and converged toward him as if on command. In an instant, he became a 1,000-meter-tall sea giant, a living avatar of the sea god, and the sea god helmet expanded to crown his colossal head, adding majesty and sacred authority. Ocean Torrent Fist, the 100,000-year spirit ring flashed. Endless currents compressed around Chen Huiji's right hand until the flowing water, though seemingly soft, contained ultimate destructive force. He punched forward. The air tore with a mournful howl as a terrifying wave of chi surged toward the demon empress. She would not be idle. The 12 superconducting magnetic rings on her back discharged torrents of lightning, dragons of electricity coalescing at her fingertips. A lightning ray streaked across the sky, cleaving the void realm. Its penetration was terrible. Chen Huiji's fist was struck through, and his whole arm went luminous with lightning, a bright little sun that made it hard to look directly at. But Chen Huiji's sea-true form made him one with the ocean, giving him a continuous, oceanic life stream. He dissolved his right hand in an instant, turning it into seawater. Without a solid target, the lightning exhausted itself and dissipated into the void. When the seawater recondensed, his arm rematerialized. In this ocean, with his sea spirit, he felt near invincible. Seeing their clan chief briefly disadvantaged, the other sea god family members provided long-range support with spirit tools. From one battleship, a level 9 fixed-point spirit tool cannonball was fired. Even the demon empress twitched at its presence. The strike power of such a cannonball could rival a full-power limit Douluo blow. She certainly could not risk being hit by it at close range. The sea god family had not built that weapon themselves. Their technology could not produce something so powerful. They had secretly purchased it from the Sun Moon Empire at great cost, intending to study it to learn the secrets of Sun Moon spirit tool design. Now, though, it was needed in this life-or-death struggle. The demon empress would not allow the cannonball to detonate near her. She pointed, and lightning raged outward, precisely locking onto the incoming cannonball and detonating it midair. A colossal mushroom cloud rose from the sea as if heralding the world's end. The explosion's shockwaves swept over tens of kilometers. The sea surged in a violent wall of water tens of meters high, a cataclysmic, apocalyptic sight. The cannonball had proven its worth. Though its raw strike power was only comparable to a limit Douluo's full-force blow, its lethal range far exceeded that of an ordinary demigod. In individual duels, it might be evadable, but in a large-scale battle or siege, its deterrent and destructive power was magnified, an ever-present sword of Damocles. Annoying. The demon empress's face tightened. She was already injured. The fight with Chen Huiji demanded her full focus, and the densely packed spirit tool battleships were like flies disrupting her rhythm. She took a slow step, and the void realm ignited with high-voltage electric arcs as if gunpowder had been set alight. Lightning spread from her like silver snakes, weaving the heavens and earth into a net of electricity. Listen, in this lightning storm, the applause of 1,000,000 souls. Her cold, near-emotionless voice rolled across the sea. A strange infrasound merged with the whale song of lightning and resonated through the ocean in a soul-shaking chorus, as if coming from the abyss itself, steeped in dread. Not good. Chen Huiji's expression changed instantly. Even under the sea god helmet's protection, he felt a sudden disorientation, a momentary daze, as if falling into a Guimei-like illusion. The other sea god family disciples were hit worse. Before their eyes, a gigantic deep-sea demon whale materialized with a bloody maw, poised to devour them. At the same time, the strange frequency made their bodies spontaneously combust, and they screamed in pain. This was the demon empress's signature move, born of her species and her electromagnetic mastery, plasma whale song. Infrasound could drag a person into illusion, while electromagnetic force could manipulate the body's magnetic fields and induce spontaneous combustion. If one failed to break the illusion immediately, one had no choice but to move towards self-destruction, utterly powerless. With the demon empress's condensed divine sense and potent mental force, few in the world were strong enough to resist such an attack. "Undercurrent magnetic storm," she cried, showing no mercy. She reveled in kicking someone while they were down. Her hands danced like a conductor's, and the calm ocean began to writhe. Seawater boiled, and the blue surface turned an eerie red as she manipulated electromagnetic force to distort the planet's magnetic field. Underwater volcanoes erupted. Scorching magma met cold seawater, triggering violent chemical reactions and birthing chloride lightning storm clouds. Corrosive acid lightning fell like fat raindrops, intent on devouring everything. By her original background, practically illiterate, the demon empress should never have been able to wield electromagnetic force so deftly. With such limited knowledge, she could at best fling crude lightning bolts. But Mobius had anticipated this. Knowing the Demon Empress's ignorance, Mobius had taught her the essentials of electromagnetic theory freely. The Demon Empress had turned out to be a voracious learner. Once the door was opened, she dived in like one who had found a treasure trove. For a Herrscher, knowledge broadened how fully one could apply authority. Without understanding the physical laws behind their powers, a Herrscher could only use them in the most superficial way. A Herrscher of thunder without electromagnetic knowledge becomes merely a girl who discharges electricity. A Herrscher of wind who lacks insight into ideal fluids can only blow gusts of air. The Herrschers, authorities tie directly to physical principles. To wield them at their peak, you need the corresponding scientific understanding, proof that knowledge truly is power. Chapter 245, The Sea God Family Defeated. Acidic lightning fell like a torrential downpour, and the shields of the Spirit Tool warship fleet dissolved under its corrosive bite as if they were thin paper. The metal hulls of the Spirit Tool warships were eaten away in an instant, the vessels sinking one after another to the seabed, leaving only ripples on the surface that memorialized their brief existence. "Damn it, Azure Dragon Raging Sea!" Chen Huiji snarled, eyes burning with fury. Since their legacy, when had the Sea God family ever suffered such catastrophic losses? Desperate, he activated the Sea God helmet and poured divine force into a spirit ability. Though not a true divine ability, the divine blessing made it effectively a pseudo-divine ability, far beyond an ordinary 100,000-year spirit ability. A colossal sea dragon erupted from the ocean like a titanic beast breaking free from its cocoon. Its blood-red maw, large enough to swallow heaven and earth, gaped and lunged at the Demon Emperor high above, as if it meant to devour her to assuage its rage. The Demon Emperor simply sneered. Her body was instantly wrapped in lightning, flashing like a meteor. In a moment, she reshaped, transforming into a giant lightning whale and rocketing skyward like an arrow loosed from a bow. Ionized currents danced around the whale, tinting the sky purple, and then, with crushing force, it smashed down on the sea dragon. The impact thundered across the sea, driving the sea dragon back into the water and turning the entire ocean into a roiling field of lightning. The seawater shimmered as if it had become liquid plasma. A ringing, glass-like sound cut the air as a ball of condensed lightning shot forward like a high-velocity bullet and struck Chen Huiji. A lightning-armored hand darted out and a brilliant bolt cleaved through the sea giant form that Chen Huiji had adopted, punching a massive hole through its chest. Lightning danced around the wound, keeping the seawater from closing it and preventing any rapid healing. The sea giant trembled under the agony. Chen Huiji's face went pale. This was a fight for his very life. He threw a blow that released the boundless force of the ocean and temporarily forced the Demon Emperor back. With a hoarse roar, he ordered the surviving clan members, "Retreat to the Douluo Continent. Warn the Clear Sky Sect and Shrek Academy. The deep-sea demon whale has appeared and comes for the sea god lineage." He had sensed the truth. Something was wrong. The Demon Emperor's strength far exceeded what a common deep-sea demon whale could wield. Even using the Sea God helmet, a divine artifact, he had only managed a precarious stalemate with the already injured Demon Emperor, and at times he had been on the losing end. He couldn't allow the Sea God family's elite to be wiped out here. The members who had come out this time were their finest. If these elites perished, the deeply rooted Sea God family could never recover. The surviving Sea God family members were raw with grief and outrage at the slaughter of their comrades. Chen Huiji's command, sounding like a final will, sent cold dread through their hearts. Their leader clearly had no firm confidence in surviving. They felt an abyssal hopelessness settle over them. The Demon Emperor, however, had no intention of letting the Sea God family go unpunished. To her, any follower of the Sea God deserved death. As the battle continued, her lightning storm only grew wilder under her command. She fought with increasing ease. She hadn't been the Herrscher of Thunder for long, and her experience using this power was limited, but the fight had rapidly accelerated her mastery, sharpening her strength with each exchange. Meanwhile, the Sea God helmet, which had glowed so brilliantly, dimmed, its power drained. Unlike the Demon Emperor, who could draw energy from the Gem of Conquest, Chen Huiji was burning through the divine force stored in the helmet, the accumulated power of the sea god family over 10,000 years. Once that force was gone, reusing the helmet would require the ultimate price, his life. He had no other choice. If he didn't rely on the sea god helmet to contest control of the ocean against the deep-sea demon whale, he could not guarantee the escape of his clan. Without it, this sea would become their grave. Not far off, Blue Fozy watched the devastation unfold. Fragments of Spirit Tool warships were scattered across the sea like dead leaves. A flicker of sorrow touched her clear eyes. She had followed the Demon Emperor and had seen the horrors in the Demon Shark domain. Though the Demon Soul Great White Shark clan had been her enemy, her nature was compassionate. Clan annihilation was a cruelty that always ripped at her heart. Now, watching the Sea God family face near total annihilation, her anxiety deepened. The Demon Emperor's actions were blatant. If her rampage drew the attention of powerful human figures, or worse, divinity itself, the Demon Emperor would be in grave danger. That danger, too, worried Blue Fozy. Then the tide of battle shifted abruptly. With a final dazzling magnetic storm slash that split the sky, lightning struck the blue sea god helmet. A subtle crack bloomed, spiderwebbing across the artifact, growing until the helmet shattered with a sharp crash, scattering fragments into the water. The sea god helmet, a divine artifact left by sea god Tang San to the family, bearing glory and duty, was destroyed forever. Chen Huijie himself looked nothing like the vigorous, handsome leader he had been. To unleash the helmet's power, he had sacrificed his life force. White hair framed a face like dried bark, skin shriveled and lined with wrinkles. Time and sacrifice had ravaged him. Even if he somehow bested the Demon Emperor now, little life remained. Once a sea god Douluo, who had reached the peak realm of a rank 99 limit Douluo, who had believed he could stand against beast god Ditian, he now fell in this remote sea, his might unnoticed by the world. The Demon Emperor hissed, "You wasted my time, clinging to death." Though she had won, she had exhausted her greatest weapons and her injuries had deepened. Her expression was grim and tired as lightning danced about her. With a sweep of her hand, the corpse of Chen Huiji turned to ash and scattered. She casually tossed the ruined fragments of the sea god helmet into the ocean, then flashed and dove into the depths. She needed to find sea soul beasts to devour and mend her wounds. Her 10,000-year hatred would not be sated by the destruction of the Demon Soul Great White Shark clan and the sea god family alone. Her path of vengeance had only begun. Before leaving, she transmitted the battle intelligence concerning the sea god family to the World Serpent. The World Serpent had given her power and hope. She did not want to damage that relationship. She would still need the World Serpent's backing. The sea god family? Lu Jingming read the battle report on his phone and felt a stir. I remember a Chen Xinji, the vast sea Douluo from 10,000 years later, came from the sea god family, didn't he? He had not expected the Demon Emperor to stumble upon the sea god family. The family had always been mysterious in this era, leaving almost no trace, hidden shadows in the dark. Only 10,000 years later did they reappear, and even then they kept themselves concealed. Tang San had planned extensively for control of the Douluo Continent, and the sea god family had been one of his many contingencies, part of the chessboard he laid across the world. The Demon Emperor's blow, which severely crippled the sea god family, might be a bitter kind of fortune for those plans. One less unpredictable power to disturb the future. Mobius, Chapter 246, Condensed Soul Core. Lu Jingming's concentrated thoughts unintentionally woke Kei-Ching, who had been sleeping soundly beside him. When she opened her eyes and saw him sitting on the edge of the bed, the events from before rushed back to her. Although they hadn't crossed the final line, their intimate moments still made her flush with embarrassment. "Why are you still here? I'm not indulging you today. I have a lot of work to handle," she said, trying to sound composed and nonchalant. Her slightly reddened earlobes betrayed the panic simmering beneath her calm tone. Lu Jingming found her pretended composure amusing, but he knew Kei-Ching was thin-skinned. If he teased her, she might fly into a fit of embarrassed anger and ignore him for days. So he only smiled lightly and stayed quiet. Soon the sound of running water came from the bathroom as King went in to shower. Lu Jingming closed his eyes and focused inward, feeling his spirit power surge like a tidal wave. He could tell he was on the verge of breaking through the level 70 bottleneck. After that, he would begin condensing his first spirit core. Of all his abilities, the Black Abyss White Flower was his most familiar and frequently used. Naturally, his first spirit core would be of the destructive attribute. As an ultimate attribute spirit master, his spirit power was purer and denser than that of ordinary practitioners, so the process of condensing a spirit core was much easier for him. Condensing a spirit core means gradually liquefying spirit power until it flows like water, then compressing it into a crystalline form, the spirit core. In this world, spirit masters normally only begin to condense a spirit core when they are about to break through and become a titled Douluo. The spirit core is essentially the threshold into that rank. Without it, a true breakthrough to a titled Douluo is impossible. Lu Jingming, however, knew some hidden techniques. Before level 70, a spirit master could purify their spirit power by suppressing cultivation speed and compressing their power at the critical point of 69 to leap directly to 70 and condense a spirit core in one sweeping motion. Doing so could extend lifespan, dramatically enhance and lengthen the duration of a spirit avatar, and make future breakthroughs easier. Condensing a spirit core before becoming a spirit saint carried too many advantages to ignore. Ultimate attribute spirit masters had an extra benefit. Their spirit power was already relatively concentrated and pure, making the first spirit core and the second and third that might follow much easier to form. That was why, even in an age with many rising titled Douluo, ultimate attribute spirit masters still held considerable value on Douluo Continent. Lu Jingming already met all the conditions. The spirit power in his body had nearly liquefied. He only needed to push a little harder to crystallize it into his first spirit core. He didn't need any rare heaven and earth treasures. His talent could do it naturally. If he hadn't replaced his original spirit with the divine rank Black Abyss White Flower from the start, his growth would never have been as fast or as high. Bloodline and spirit affinity determined far more here than sheer effort. Talent mattered. Keiqing finished showering and stepped out wrapped in a towel, her wet hair dripping along the graceful curve of her neck. Steam clung to her skin, leaving a faint flush. "You! Turn around!" she snapped, pointing at Lu Jingming. She wanted privacy while she changed. Lu Jingming's mouth twitched. He had already seen everything earlier. There was no need to be embarrassed now, but she was his wife. Of course he would indulge her. He turned his head obediently. Keiqing's face softened when she found him so cooperative. "You behave yourself," she said as she changed. "Seeing that you're so obedient, I'll grant you a favor next time." She pulled on a fresh pair of black silk stockings. The previous pair had been ruined by him, and smoothed them down. Black silk suited her mysterious, seductive temperament best. Lu Jingming was secretly pleased. Keiqing usually dressed simply and rarely wore jewelry, so it was a rare treat to see her in anything different. He made a mental note to ask her to try white silk next time. He suspected it would suit other girls like Jinxi or Lu Ying more, giving them a fresher, sweeter look. But Keiqing in black silk was perfect. "I, Keiqing, won't go back on my word," she declared, hands on her hips, raising an adorable, slightly haughty look. All right, young Miss Keiqing. A promise is a promise," Lu Jingming said with a playful surrender. Keiqing's expression turned serious. "I'm going back to the office. I don't know whether they've sorted things out there. You made such a scene. How am I going to explain it?" She worried that her staff would be anxious after her sudden disappearance for a day. While she could placate most subordinates, she couldn't hide the situation from people like Ye Miko or Changli. She and Lu Jingming had vanished together. Guesses would be made. With that thought, she shot him a glare before leaving. Lu Jingming shrugged and reconnected to Thousand Realm, one ride. He wanted a quiet, energy-rich place to condense his first spirit core. Herta's territory was ideal. It was tranquil and saturated with ambient power. Herta's main body wasn't there anyway. She had already departed Douluo Star and gone out to the starry universe to blow up black holes. Lu Jingming had been tempted to go see, but that was not a spectacle for a small spirit emperor like him to join. He settled beside several collapse energy reaction furnaces where the energy was especially active. As he began to absorb heaven and earth origin chi, his consciousness loosened from his body and spread outward, feeling as if it merged with the surrounding world. He felt immersed in an ocean of energy particles. Countless motes surged toward him, eager to be absorbed. Particles of death, destruction, life, and lightning were especially active, pressing in as if to be taken. Other kinds of energy followed, though they did not resonate with him as strongly. The torrent of power flowed into him, and his body quivered with every intake. Each tremor distorted the air around him, an effect of compressing and condensing colossal energy. Inside his dantian, bands of spirit light flared brighter and brighter, like a constellation igniting. He was on the edge of transformation, the crystalline core of his spirit almost ready to form. Chapter 247. May inside Lu Jingming's body, the band of spirit energy spun faster and faster, coalescing into a vast vortex. At its center, a clear crystal slowly formed, emitting a soft, treasure-like glow. Within the crystal, a miniature black abyss spear could just be made out. That was his spirit projection. When it matured, it would become his innate weapon. Once he ascended to godhood, that spear would turn into his divine artifact. Unlike an acquired, forged divine artifact, an innate weapon had immense growth potential. It evolved with the user, almost without limit. In time, the Black Abyss weapon growing with him could very well surpass the original and become far more terrifying. And because it would be part of him, it would be perfectly compatible, like an extension of his body, letting him draw out its full power. Lu Jingming sat in meditation, carefully feeling the astonishing changes in his body and spirit. To condense a spirit core meant he was no longer an ordinary human. Both his form and his lifespan had shifted. He wasn't particularly concerned about the extra century of life the change implied. What mattered more to him was the evolution of his spirit and the transformation of his body. Now that he had broken through to Spirit Saint and condensed his first spirit core, his combat power leapt again. A titled Douluo could no longer pose a real danger. Even a super Douluo would struggle to trouble him. Only a limit Douluo might be a threat, and even then, only in theory. In this world, his strength was simply excessive, far beyond Huo Yuhao's level when that Huo Yuhao first condensed a spirit core in the original timeline. Come to think of it, I'm already Spirit Saint, and the next Soul Master competition in the Sun Moon Empire is 2 years away, he thought with a wry smile. At my current pace, even if I don't push for Douluo, I'll be close. Is it worth entering? That'd be flat-out bullying. After condensing a spirit core, it continued to operate on its own, steadily raising his cultivation. With Haiwan City's abundant cultivation resources, by the time the competition came around, he might well be a spirit Douluo. With his help, Jinshi, Shidai, and the others would almost certainly condense their first spirit cores too. St. Freya Academy's lineup as it stood would make the contest utterly one-sided. Opponents would probably weep to see it. Then again, he told himself, shaking his head, with the Holy Grail War going on, it's not even certain the Sun Moon Empire will hold the competition. If they don't, I can let Wang Chuer take the team later. He had little interest in such one-sided matches now. Haiwan City no longer needed the title of Soul Master Champion to matter. The city itself had grown into a behemoth, a force across the Douluo Continent. If his parents from his original world, who had died young, could see this, they would be at peace. He couldn't repay them directly in that world, but he could carry on the Lu family legacy and make it thrive. The moment his spirit core formed, Lu Jingming noticed a subtle anomaly. He lifted his hand, and his eyes went to the stigmata mark. A vivid red seal flared into being above it, pulsing with a mysterious light. Good heavens, am I the second one? He murmured. As the initiator of the Holy Grail War, Lu Jingming recognized the command seal he had designed. He'd had a fleeting doubt. Could this be real? But it made sense. He had been nurturing Douluo Star's growth, and in many ways had taken Huo Yuhao's place as this world's lucky prodigy. It wasn't unreasonable that he should be chosen as a master. Still, he knew luck didn't determine selection order. Otherwise, Bai Shushu, the fourth-generation heroine, would never have been first. Perfect. Let's do a gotcha pull and test my luck, he thought, grinning. In his previous life, he'd loved gotcha pulls in pay-to-win games, the anticipation and surprise. Now the chance to summon a servant made his chest tingle with that same excitement. He had no intention of throwing himself into the Holy Grail War, but that didn't stop him from enjoying the summon itself. Herta had crafted the Holy Grail at his request, and he'd asked her to add some extra, purely fun features. This flashy summoning effect was one of them. The Holy Grail responded to his ascent. A blood-red summoning array unfurled slowly across Herta's lab, connecting to the planet's ley lines. The array drew on the planet's negative energy and, in a strange way, began to condense a memory body. Gold rarity, Lu Jingming exclaimed when he saw a faint golden glimmer in the array. He'd organized the memory bodies into 3 ranks, gold, purple, and blue, based on the rarity and his own subjective impressions. The classification didn't perfectly reflect absolute strength. Some blues could be terrifying, but it made the summon more fun. A golden light made his spirits spike. There were many gold characters he'd be thrilled to get. Better yet if it was one of his favorite waifus. When the light faded, a figure coalesced from the array. Long purple hair fell like a waterfall. A katana hung at her waist. Her face bore a striking resemblance to Lady Zhen. The familiar features caught Lu Jingming's attention instantly. "Yes, it's Yellow Springs," he nearly shouted in glee, convinced he'd hit the jackpot, and summoned the version's main DPS. Then he looked closer and froze. Something was off. The clothes this woman wore weren't what he remembered. She wore silver-white armor with black undertones and black translucent stockings, nothing like the outfits he knew on Yellow Springs, Raiden I, or Raiden Mei. Her face had the gentle look of the housewife type. Her long, straight purple hair and the gorgeous katana at her hip were familiar, but the attire was wrong. Could it be Mei? He hesitated. The look didn't quite match any single image in his head. "You seem not very satisfied with me?" A mature, gentle voice asked, like spring wind with a cool edge. The voice snapped Lu Jingming out of his daze. "You are? Raiden Mei!" A flash of realization hit him. He remembered another version of Raiden Mei who wore exactly this armor, the mature Raiden Mei from the post-Honkai Odyssey timeline. In an instant, the katana flashed free. Its tip, charged faintly with lightning, stabbed toward Lu Jingming and stopped a centimeter from his nose. Raiden Mei's eyes were calm, but carried a trace of annoyance. "What did you just call me?" she demanded. Beads of cold sweat broke out on Lu Jingming's forehead as he scrambled for a laugh and tried to bluff. Raiden Mei? Nothing wrong with that, considering your age." She slowly sheathed the long blade, a hint of melancholy in her voice. "Never mind," she said. She sounded a little down. She was summoned at this age. Why? She'd been stronger 8 years ago. Back then, she hadn't lost most of her power. Chapter 248, Raiden Mei's Bewilderment. "Actually, a more mature you is even more charming," Lu Jingming teased, not knowing how badly he was poking at her. A vein throbbed faintly at Raiden Mei's temple. Her hand tightened around the katana at her side, as if she could cut him down with a single motion. He really had a talent for getting under her skin. She'd intended to let the subject drop, but he had to keep pushing. Lu Jingming, for all his teasing, wasn't lying. He genuinely thought the Raiden Mei from the post-Honkai Odyssey had a unique appeal. The innocent, maidenly version was lovely, but the composed, big sister Raiden Mei had her own steady charm. "Let's drop it," he said, changing the subject. "I don't understand everything about this place yet, and a lot of it's baffling. But as long as we win this Holy Grail War, that should be enough. Ready?" Raiden Mei pushed aside her irritation. For some reason, a spark of fighting spirit flared inside her. Coming to an unfamiliar world and being told she had to take part in a grand Holy Grail War had awakened a long-dormant excitement. Lu Jingming watched her with mild amusement. He'd always suspected she had a bit of chunibu in her, the kind of theatrical flair that usually faded after adolescence, except she was in her 20s. Noticing his look, Mei flushed and coughed twice, forcing herself back into a composed, dignified posture. Her reddened earlobes, however, betrayed how embarrassed she felt. Lu Jingming's face grew a little serious. He didn't want to disappoint her anticipation, so he laid it out plainly. As her master and the organizer of this particular Holy Grail War, he'd had a hand in forging the Grail itself. summoning Raiden Mei in the way he had essentially guaranteed the victory for her side. She wouldn't have to fight through the usual life-and-death struggles of the war. In short, she'd get the winner's rewards without the brutal competition. Mei went silent, eyes wide with disbelief. She never expected the master who summoned her to be so special. To be summoned and then told she didn't have to endure the cruelties of the war, that she could be handed the final prize. She was stunned. Lu Jingming didn't conceal anything because he planned to summon Raiden Mei's main body later. By then, everyone would be allies and there'd be nothing to hide. "So what do I do next?" she asked, a little lost. She'd been ready to show her strength in the Grail War, not to sit out. "It's almost noon," Lu Jingming said, checking the time. "How about cook?" He looked at her hopefully. In his mind, Raiden Mei really was a chef. Cooking wasn't just a hobby for her, it was part of who she was. He'd always been curious to try her food, and this mature version of her likely cooked even better now. Mei smiled, a little helplessly. Cooking was one of her pleasures, and she was genuinely curious about the ingredients of this world. She agreed. At the same time, Meng Hongqin felt like the world was collapsing. She'd packed Lu Jingming's usual lunch and walked over, expecting the familiar satisfaction of seeing him enjoy a meal she'd made. Instead, she found a spread of exquisitely arranged dishes already on the table, aromas and colors that made her box look suddenly amateurish. In the kitchen, a woman with long purple hair and a mature, beautiful face moved with practiced ease, preparing the meal like a devoted wife. The tableau froze Meng in place. The man waiting, the woman cooking. Lu Jingming looked like a husband contentedly waiting for his wife's lunch. The wife, aura coming off Raiden Mei, made Meng's confidence wilt. Compared to her own youthful inexperience, Raiden Mei was composed and undeniably alluring. "Meng, you're here," Lu Jingming greeted as if this were all ordinary. He hadn't forgotten Meng. He'd asked Mei to cook partly to give her something to do and help her settle in. He'd also told Firefly and the others to come, so there'd be plenty to eat. "A Ming, who is she?" Meng set down the meal box, unable to hide the slight edge in her voice as she looked at Raiden Mei. She wasn't just upset about being upstaged in the kitchen, she felt threatened. A mature, gentle woman like Mei could easily make a boy like Lu Jingming fall for her, and that frightened Meng. "She's Raiden Mei, the servant I summoned." Lu Jingming smiled and showed the command seal on his hand, the mark of a master. News of the Holy Grail War had already spread among the various powers. Meng, the young miss of the Hongqin family, had access to those channels and knew what the war entailed. Concern hardened her features. "You're participating in the Holy Grail War? That's dangerous." Meng's worry was immediate. The Grail War could swallow even powerful titled Douluo. The final prize was a god position, and nobody participated without great risk. Lu Jingming, she thought, was only a spirit emperor. How could he possibly be safe? What she didn't know was that Lu Jingming had already broken through to Spirit Saint. "Don't worry," he said confidently. "Whether I fight or not, no one can harm me." He smiled easily. On the Douluo Continent, few could truly threaten him, and he wasn't alone. He had powerful allies like Jing Liu and Herta at his side. Meng brightened instantly. She loved his confidence. To her, he was irresistible. Just then, Raiden Mei emerged from the kitchen, carrying a steaming platter, and set it gently on the table. Lu put his arm around Meng's shoulders, as if she were his girlfriend, and gazed at Mei with an amused smile. Raiden Mei ignored Lu's little display and instead stepped forward to greet Meng, offering a warm, mature smile and extending her hand. "Hello, I'm Raiden Mei." Meng, leaning into Lu's embrace, perked up. Her impression of Mei softened. She took the offered hand politely. "Hello, I'm Meng Hongqin." Soon Firefly, Xiadi, Sanyuichi, Jinshi, Robin, Gu Yu, and the others, having received Lu Jingming's message, arrived as well. As expected, Raiden Mei's mature, sisterly manner quickly drew people in. She hit it off especially well with Sanyuichi, whose bright, sunny personality reminded Mei of an old friend and warmed her heart. But as she chatted and helped around the table, Raiden Mei began to notice odd things. Meng's closeness to Lu Jingming was one thing, but so were the others. Xiadi, Gu Yu, Robin, Firefly. During the meal, they hovered around Lu, fussing over him, sometimes helping feed him as if he were a child. No one seemed embarrassed, and Meng hardly reacted, treating it as completely normal. May watched them, perplexed. She'd come expecting a straightforward dynamic, one girl by the boy's side. But this, the intimacy of the whole group with Lu Jingming, left her puzzled and more than a little bewildered. Chapter 249, Raiden Mei and Raiden Zhen. Watching the cluster of young, beautiful girls gathered around Lu Jingming, Raiden Mei felt like she'd stepped into a harem anime, with Lu Jingming cast as the gentle, beloved male lead. "Don't worry, you'll get used to it," Jinshi said, dabbing her mouth elegantly with a napkin. Raiden Mei's cooking was excellent, so good even Jinshi could not help but praise it. Seeing the odd look on Raiden Mei's face, Jinshi sighed softly and smiled. They had all been summoned by Lu Jingming, and thus felt a natural affection for him. But that wasn't the whole story. What truly won them over was how Lu Jingming treated them, considerate in life's small details, sincere and unreserved in his care. Over time, that fondness only deepened. From everyday gestures to every interaction, they could feel his genuine affection. Even if Lu Jingming seemed to have many people who liked him, occasionally provoking petty complaints, no one found it unforgivable. Raiden Mei's lips twitched. "Get used to it, huh?" she muttered under her breath, but she didn't think about it much longer. The Holy Grail had already given her some basic information about this world, a feudal imperial society where polygamy was common among nobles and emperors. Such a scene, however jarring to her, might simply be normal here. But Sister Raiden Mei and Sister Raiden Zhen look so much alike. "I almost mistook one for the other earlier," Sanyuechi said, eyes wide and lively in astonishment. The first time she'd seen Raiden Mei, she'd had Raiden Zhen's face in her mind and nearly mixed them up. "That's true. You even have the same surname. Are you sisters?" Robin asked, tilting her head with curiosity. Meng Hongchen's ears pricked up at the new name, Raiden Zhen, alarm bells ringing inside her. Another unfamiliar name. Raiden Mei herself looked puzzled. Had someone here been mistaken for her? Before she could think further, a gentle, mature voice spoke. "It's me." Lu Jingming's thunder stigmata on his hand flashed, emitting a faint glow. In the next moment, Raiden Zhen appeared, graceful and composed. Meng Hongchen gasped. The resemblance to Raiden Mei was nearly perfect, 90% the same, and to Meng she was an instant rival. Raiden Mei alone had been enough to make Meng uneasy. Now there was another. Raiden Mei stared at Raiden Zhen, bewildered. The woman looked like her mirror image, identical features, the same gentle demeanor. For a second, Raiden Mei wondered if she had a twin. "My name is Raiden Zhen," the newcomer said with a soft smile. "Besides my sister, I never expected anyone to look so much like me." She found the situation amusing. In her mind, she knew Raiden Mai wasn't related to her. She and Raiden Ai were twin archons, not ordinary humans. Raiden Mei was clearly human. Still, the coincidence of surname, appearance, and temperament would convince anyone who didn't know the truth that they were sisters. Raiden Mei's mouth twitched in resignation. What a coincidence, she thought. Lu Jingming watched the scene with a quiet smile, imagining how much more interesting it would be if figures like Yellow Springs, Raiden Ai, and Raiden Shogun were present. The interactions would be even more entertaining. Far away, in the Douluo God Realm, a brutal battle still raged. The clash of God Kings was catastrophic, a storm of power that shook the entire God Realm. Though the God Realm side held the advantage, subduing the Golden Dragon King and Ma Hongjun would not be easy. Tang San, now the incarnation of the Asura god, fought with bloodshot eyes, lashing out at Ma Hongjun with reckless fury, abandoning any vestige of their former brotherhood. The sudden disappearance of Xiaowu, who had served as the scabbard for the Asura sword, had thrown Tang San's inner powers into turmoil. The sea god and Asura god positions within him conflicted violently, the two divine forces nearly ripping him apart. Fortunately, Tang San had been a divinity for many years. Through long cultivation and integration, he had learned to reconcile those conflicting powers. Had he been newly ascended without Xiaowu to bear one half of the burden, he likely would have exploded. Still, he had to divert part of his strength to suppress the sea god position in order to keep balance, so his Asura power couldn't be unleashed in full. Though his killing intent burned, he could not fully unleash the Asura god's devastating might, and that limited his threat to the Golden Dragon King and Ma Hongjun compared with the god of destruction. As the old saying went, 1 day in the God realm equals 1 year in the lower realm. While the God realm writhed in war, time in the lower realm continued to tick. In a blink, only 1 year remained until the 2025 All-Continent Advanced Soul Master Academy Soul Duel Tournament. This year, the Sun Moon Empire was the host, and to Lu Jingming's surprise, it was determined to keep the hosting rights. Over the past year, the Holy Grail War had leapt into motion. The Grail had selected many people of exceptional luck to become masters and summon servants. Most major factions, however, chose to hide their masters and servants, wary of becoming targets. After all, killing other servants could yield negative energy that would strengthen one's own servant, an irresistible temptation that made everyone cautious. The Sun Moon Empire planned to change the tournament rules to allow all sects from the Douluo Continent to participate. In the original timeline, the Sun Moon Empire used the tournament to wipe out the original Douluo Three Kingdoms sect powers, but now they clearly had another aim: to flush masters and servants out of hiding. Everyone knew the rumor. He who obtains the sea god position obtains the world, and the Sun Moon Empire wanted the Grail War victory. A divinity's appearance would decide the fate of the continent, and though no one yet knew the full, terrifying power contained in Haiyuan City, the Sun Moon Empire's resolve was clear. The other three empires agreed almost at once. They understood the Sun Moon Empire's motives, and they delighted at the prospect of weakening Sun Moon by dragging the fight into Mingdu. With many masters and servants revealed, Mingdu could be devastated, and the damage to the Sun Moon Empire could be catastrophic. It was too good an opportunity to pass up, and all agreed to make Mingdu the battlefield. Lu Jingming suspected the Sun Moon Empire had a trump card that gave it the confidence to act so boldly, but he did not use his behind-the-scenes authority over the Holy Grail to peek at their servant list. Aside from the very first time, when curiosity had driven him to check the identity of the first master and their servant, and his checks on Bai Shushu and Skirk, he had left the Grail's back end alone. Omniscience, he thought, could be dull. When everything was laid bare, the thrill of the unknown vanished. He wanted surprises. Seeing a servant appear in person and recognizing them on the spot was far more satisfying than opening a menu full of names. Compared to the tournament and the looming servant free-for-all, today had a personal significance for Lu Jingming. It was his 18th birthday, his coming of age. For most people, this might be ordinary, but for him, it carried a deeper meaning. For most people, coming of age was just a milestone on the way to adulthood. For Lu Jingming, it meant something else entirely: permission to indulge. He still resented how, in past intimate moments with Zhang Lexuan, Xu Juju, Kei Qing, and others, he had been held back. He hadn't been an adult yet, and couldn't take the final step. Now that day had come, and he could hardly wait. He lazed in the steaming hot spring, mulling an important question: who should be the one to take his virginity? There were plenty of candidates. Zhang Lexuan, his betrothed, had always stood by him and supported him. She could have been an obvious choice. Shuju wouldn't refuse, but she was in the Star Luo Empire, too far for an immediate decision. Kei Qing had come close before. If his will had faltered then, he might already have crossed the line. Meng Hongqin's obsession with him guaranteed she would be willing. As for Shadi, Lu Ying, Gu Yue, and the rest, he'd shared kisses and touches with them, but something still felt missing. Those relationships needed time to develop. After wandering through all the possibilities, he settled on Zhang Lexuan. She had been his child bride, quietly supporting him and even helping him gather a harem. Her bearing as his primary partner inspired gratitude and reverence in him. "Hey, what's on your mind, little one?" The sudden, elegant voice startled him out of his reverie. Yai Miko had slipped up to the spring, wrapped in a white towel. Lu Jingming blinked in surprise. He'd always thought Miko disliked hot springs. Foxes shed fur in them, after all. Yet here she was, testing the water with a delicate toe before stepping in. "You're not welcome?" she teased, a sly smile like spring blossoms. Her long pink hair floated over the steam, and her bare shoulders showed pale beneath the mist. "You were probably thinking about how to tease me. Still holding a grudge, aren't you?" Lu Jingming could only give a wry look. Miko was mischievous and vindictive, She'd publicly declared she would keep her distance out of respect for Lady and Jen, but privately loved to play tricks. She moved closer with teasing charm, and before he could react, looped an arm around his shoulders from behind. Her breath, warm at his ear, carried a faint, intoxicating scent. He felt the press of her body and an unexpected heat against his back. The sensation sent a jolt through him. "Miko, what are you doing? You know I just came of age today?" He stammered, panic mixed with alarm. His arousal had already awakened, and the hot spring made suppression all the more difficult. "Hey, I love lighting fires," she said softly, and her hands began to roam, gentle, tantalizing. "But putting them out, go find your little girlfriends for that." Miko's laugh was clear and teasing, and she pressed closer, her fingers exploring. The urge inside him surged. With a quick, determined motion, Lu Jingming reached back to grab her wrist, intent on pulling the fox into a proper reckoning for her provocations. Miko slipped from his grasp with the easy fluidity of a fox and drew back a step, amusement in her eyes. "You're so bold," she mocked. "Jen, help me!" Lu Jingming called, abandoning caution. Today of all days, he was not going to let this pass. If she'd lit the flame, she should be prepared to face the consequences. "You asked for it," Lady and Jen's voice replied, laced with gentle teasing. Immediately, a heavy, divine pressure descended on Miko like a mountain settling into place. It pinned her in place, stiffening her limbs, cutting off her escape. "Miko!" Miko's voice carried alarm. As a familiar of the god of eternity, she was naturally suppressed before Lady and Jen and had no way to resist. "You came at the wrong time," Lady and Jen said lightly. "Decided, Miko, it's you." Seizing the moment, Lu Jingming lunged forward. He pulled the stunned Miko into his arms. Her towel slipped away in the steam like a pale petal, revealing the graceful lines of her body. The sight, the closeness, and the timing, this was the day he'd waited for. If she had arrived earlier, before he'd come of age, he wouldn't have been able to go far, even if tempted. If she had come later, after he'd already taken that step with Zhang Lexuan, his resolve might have been firmer. But today was the day his restraint was weakest and his desire strongest. A muffled sound escaped her as Lu Jingming covered her lips with a kiss. His hands moved without hesitation to claim her chest. Their towels fell away. For a moment, everything reduced to heat, steam, and the wet slick of skin. The world narrowed to the two of them. Inside the stigma space, Lady and Jen and the great merciful Tree King, who had been watching with flushed faces, suddenly realized the connection to the outside world had been cut. The view beyond the stigma space vanished, leaving only the interior scene. Lu Jingming had severed the link. He didn't want an audience for this. No matter how they might factor into his future, this was private, and he wanted to spare Miko the shame of being exposed. He also didn't relish being watched, regardless of how permissive any spectators might become later. In the steam, a rosy flush tinted the water. Lu Jingming finally completed what he had been waiting for. He had lost his virginity. It had not been the person he'd first imagined, but the priestess who'd come to tease him. Miko's beauty and body were hard to resist. Her figure, her supple flexibility, her willingness to adapt to any position made her an ideal partner in that moment. No matter how he moved her, she responded and met him, making the experience effortless and complete. Miko had come to stoke a fire and intended to retreat. Instead, Lady and Jen's intervention had trapped her, and she'd stumbled badly in her own game. Still, cunning and playful as she was, Miko could also accept defeat gracefully. She was a good loser. Chapter 251, A Silent Night. Once she accepted the situation, Miko, who could afford to lose, played along, letting Lu Jingming fully and perfectly experience the allure of a fox spirit. Lu Jingming finally understood why King Zhou had been so infatuated with Daji. Fox spirits possessed an instinctive, unique charm. Even without much experience, their reactions could produce an exquisite, overwhelming experience. Having Miko as his first partner was, in every sense, his good fortune. Ripples spread across the hot spring as the sounds of playing and pleasure echoed within the enclosed space. Miko's delighted sighs gradually rose above their heavy breathing, turning the whole pool into something rosy and ambiguous. Outside, Liu Ying stood silently, her expression a tangle of emotions. She tightened her fingers on the emerald green wing sheath transformer until they whitened, knuckles trembling, her face flushing with embarrassment and unwillingness. She had planned to sneak into the hot spring under cover of night and slip away. But shyness had kept her pacing and hesitating outside until she finally summoned the courage to approach, and then the sounds inside shattered her composure. She recognized those voices instantly. The scummy fox, Yaemiko. Every cry and moan stabbed at her, sparking a furious, almost violent jealousy. She fought the urge to unleash a super break starfall on the pool. The hot spring was an artificial construction with enforcement guards posted around the outer perimeter. Only core personnel of the city lord's mansion could come and go freely. Because of that secure perimeter, no soundproofing soul guidance devices were installed, and Liu Ying could hear everything clearly. Flames flickered around her as she clenched her restraint, forcing herself not to storm in. The sounds were unbearable, like a swarm of ants crawling over her heart. Eventually, she could not hold it. With angry stomps, she turned into a streak of fire and shot into the distance like a meteor. On a far mountain peak, a blaze erupted, rocks tumbling as she vented her fury there. After Liu Ying left, Xiadi stepped out from the shadows. She too had heard the intoxicating noises and felt her cheeks burn. A faint dimness flickered in her eyes as she scolded herself for timidity. She had arrived too late. Someone else had already reached the pool first. She regretted not using one of her two wishes to summon Lu Jingming to her. The words had hovered on her lips countless times, but she could never bring herself to speak them. Coming near the hot spring had drained all her courage. Interrupting or joining in was unthinkable. Crestfallen, she turned away and slipped into the night. It turned out like this. Jinshi murmured from the mountaintop where she had watched everything. She had long guessed Liu Ying and Xiadi's intentions and only wanted to watch their little competition. She hadn't expected Yaemiko, such a formidable figure, to appear and claim the field. Hesitation led to defeat, just as her teacher had said. Robin padded over and sat beside her, knees hugged to her chest. She watched the dreamlike meteor shower streak across the sky, each scattered light like a tiny storyteller. Tonight will be lively. After all, it's Aiming's birthday, she said softly. The night passed quietly. On his special birthday, Lu Jingming received an exquisite gift, a clever, slippery fox who had delivered herself to him. The next morning the room was a testament to the previous night's ferocity. Clothes lay scattered, white stockings, black stockings, fishnets, each item a marker of the intensity and abandon of the hours before. After the hot spring, unable to contain himself, Lu Jingming had carried Yaemiko to her room using Thousand Realm, one ride. He practically dove into a trunk of specially selected uniforms he'd prepared, eyes bright with anticipation as he urged her to try them on. Fortunately, the cuts and sizes of Zhang Lexuan's, Xu Juju's, and Kei Qing's outfits were close enough to work, so he didn't have to scramble for Yaemiko's own wardrobe. Though Lady Zhen's betrayal had left Yaemiko somewhat compromised in body and mind, she surrendered to the moment. She didn't resist Lu Jingming's requests. She was cooperative, even taking the initiative at times, playing with all her charm. The two of them were not ordinary people. Their strength and constitution far exceeded the norm, and the contest that unfolded was anything but mild. It lasted through the night. Lu Jingming had a distinct advantage: Black Abyss White Flower, an ability that accelerated his recovery and kept him full of energy. Yaemiko started confident, trying to set the pace, but Lu Jingming's near-cheating stamina let him push back and eventually wear her down. Even with a titled Douluo-level constitution, after several ascensions and a night of relentless struggle, Yaemiko reached her limits and begged for mercy. Lu Jingming, still hungry for more, joked that he could go 3 days and 3 nights without stopping, if she hadn't refused so firmly, and if a continuous 3-day, 3-night entanglement hadn't been so absurd, he might have tried to drag her into an endless retreat. When he finally lay beside her, Yaemiko slept like a sleeping beauty. Lu Jingming was tender, gently tucking her snow-white arm back under the covers and moving with care so as not to wake her. Her pink hair was mussed, her delicate face touched with fatigue, and in that quiet state she looked softer, almost unrecognizable compared to the mischievous, sly Yaemiko of daily life. Aside from helping Changli occasionally with Haiwan city affairs, Yaemiko ran a light novel publishing house in the city, Ye Publishing House. Light novels were a new literary form on the Douluo Continent, and under Yaemiko's careful cultivation, some surprisingly engaging works had emerged. There was The Story Between Me and the God of Love, a romantic fantasy about the tangled emotions between a protagonist and the God of Love that captivated young readers. Another, Reborn as the Sea God, Grudges and Grievances with the Spirit Hall, took inspiration from the legend of sea god Tang San. It told an adventurous tale of rebirth and conflict with the Spirit Hall. For most readers, the premise, being reborn as Tang San, a legendary figure from 10,000 years ago, was bold and irresistible. Lu Jingming had read some of them out of curiosity. The authors often only knew Tang San's legend on the surface and had invented much of the backstory. The Spirit Hall in those novels tended to be portrayed as extremely evil, almost cartoonishly so. For many readers, it was a thrilling read, but Lu Jingming, with his broader literary experience from his past life, had become picky. The simplistic righteousness of sea god Tang San and the blatant villainy assigned to the Spirit Hall made him shake his head. Chapter 252, Kurtilla. At first, the Douluo Continent had been slow to accept this new kind of fiction, but over time, people were drawn in by the fresh, imaginative stories. Light novels gradually won a devoted readership, and Ye Publishing House rose to become the most prestigious publisher in the entire Star Luo Empire. Under Ye Miko's persuasion, Xiadi even became a light novel author for Ye Publishing House. It was no surprise that Xiadi proved herself a brilliant talent, becoming the company's indisputable golden name. Her stories had a magnetic quality, pulling readers in so completely they couldn't put the books down. The only flaw was that no matter how much Yaemiko begged, Xiadi stubbornly refused to write endings, much to her fans' agony and delight. Lu Jingming bent over and gently kissed the sleeping Yaemiko's forehead before slipping quietly into his clothes. He intended to fetch some nourishing food for her. With her robust constitution, she would recover after a day's rest, but he insisted on caring for her anyway. To him, it was a way of showing his love. Outside the room, Zhang Lexuan was waiting. She held 2 lacquered meal boxes in both hands, her eyes soft with concern. Seeing her, Lu Jingming felt a twinge of awkwardness. On his birthday, he had intended to spend his first night with Zhang Lexuan, but Ye Miko's bold advances had changed his plans. Zhang Lexuan didn't know his original intention, but he felt guilty all the same. They had been so close, everything but that last step, and now it had already been taken, not by one of Zhang Lexuan's longtime intimates, but by the quiet, seemingly lazy Ye Miko. It rankled. "This is a medicinal meal I asked the chef to prepare," Zhang Lexuan said, smiling as she handed the boxes to him. "Miko must be hungry after working through the night. I brought 2. She watched him closely while she spoke, and Lu Jingming noticed a new maturity in her gaze, a hint of something different in her bearing. Zhang Lexuan was always gentle and considerate, an almost guardian-like presence who appeared whenever he needed support. He felt guilty and embarrassed that she hadn't been his first. If he couldn't be first, he told himself, then at least he could be second. Since Ye Miko needed to rest, he decided he would go to Zhang Lexuan tonight. Once someone had shown him what passion felt like, he found he wanted more. The memory of that night with Ye Miko had left a fire he didn't want to cool. There was a problem, though. Lu Jingming glanced at the command seal on Zhang Lexuan's hand and sighed inwardly. Zhang Lexuan, as a well-known supporting character in the original world and a person of exceptional talent, had naturally been chosen as a master. But her servant was a complication. The servant was powerful and, frustratingly for Lu Jingming, utterly devoted to Zhang Lexuan, often staying in her chamber at night. That made any chance for privacy between master and suitor difficult. It wasn't that the servant was clingy by temperament. She simply worked better at absorbing negative energy when she was with Zhang Lexuan, and night was when negative energy was most active. Their cohabitation was practical, even necessary. For Lu Jingming, who preferred simplicity to ceremony like this servant, the arrangement was an obstacle he had to find a way around if he wanted a proper private evening with Zhang Lexuan. "Where did you go? You came to see him then. I finished writing the law draft you wanted. said a voice, and the thought was barely formed before she herself appeared. A petite figure stepped into view, a delicate girl with long, silver-white hair tied in a low ponytail, slight curls at the tips, and an elegant heimcut framing her face. A few locks at her forehead were dyed blue. A small golden crown studded with blue gems rested on her head, and she carried a scepter topped with a chess piece motif that radiated quiet authority. She wore a deep blue off-the-shoulder gown that revealed her fair, graceful shoulders, cinched at the waist with a jewel-encrusted belt. One leg was sheathed in black stocking, the other was bare, her contrasting high heels decorated in blue and white with glittering gems. A deep blue cloak embroidered with gold drifted behind her, and a pair of translucent bat-like wings peeked from her back, lending her a mysterious, imperial air. Every movement had the precision and bearing of royalty. Despite her doll-like smallness, she projected natural sovereignty. This was no ordinary servant. This was a monarch. "Thank you, Caesar. You've been a great help," Zhang Lexuan said, clearly pleased. Haiyuan City was expanding fast, growing toward autonomy as the Star Luo Empire refrained from interfering. With Soul Tool technology advancing swiftly and the city's population and territory booming, the old imperial laws could no longer fit Haiyuan City's unique situation. The city needed its own legal system, but neither Changli nor Jinxi were legal experts, and Ningguang, who knew law well, was stretched thin by the demands of the Kunyu Pavilion's expansion. The task had been delayed out of expediency until Zhang Lexuan learned that her servant had expertise in law and asked for help. The girl inclined her head. "I've finished the draft. It's based on your city's realities, but it will need some modifications. Don't adopt it wholesale." Zhang Lexuan smiled. "Of course, we'll refine it." Lu Jingming's eyes lingered on the girl. He had heard of her name, Curtila. She was a demigod who governed law and the Empress of Aroma, though she preferred to be called Caesar. She felt it better suited an empress's majesty. Curtila took her responsibilities seriously. Having been summoned as Zhang Lexuan's servant, she believed it was her duty to help Zhang Lexuan grow and, ultimately, to win the Holy Grail. She desired the Grail not out of vanity, but because she had ambitions that reached far beyond her own kingdom. The stars themselves invited expansion. To be summoned from another world, even if only as a memory, had intrigued and flattered her. "I'll work with you until the system is sound," Curtila said, her voice calm, confident. "Once the legal framework is in place, Haiyuan City will be better able to stand on its own." Zhang Lexuan's eyes shone with gratitude. Curtila's aid was more than administrative. Her legal insight and sense of responsibility were exactly what the city needed. For Lu Jingming, Curtila was both a boon and a barrier. Her help for the city pleased him, but her presence in Zhang Lexuan's private life complicated his plans. Curtila, however, had her own horizon. Helping Zhang Lexuan was one thing. The Holy Grail and the vast sea of stars were another. Her ambitions hinted at schemes and campaigns that reached beyond mere lawmaking, plans that could change the balance of power in ways both promising and dangerous. Chapter 253, Juzi's Servant. For Curtila, this Holy Grail war was an extraordinary opportunity. If she could win, she would be able to descend into this world in her true form and finally witness the realm beyond the heavens she had always dreamed of. Strategy was her strength. She treated the world like a chessboard and excelled at directing armies. That did not mean she lacked combat ability. On the contrary, when she played chess, her favorite move was to bring the king out early, demonstrating a leader's courage to be at the front. Because of her talents and temperament, Curtila prized Zhang Lexuan and wanted to cultivate her carefully, making her the most important piece on the board. Zhang Lexuan had no objections. Curtila's abilities were very helpful, and in the time they spent together, she had come to like this unconventional empress. Curtila, though an empress, lived by her own rules. She disliked anyone taller than her bowing below her crown. Except for a few intimates, no one was allowed within 5 meters of her. That paradox, approachable and haughty at once, was striking, as were her mismatched clothes, the adorable, petite likeness of a legal lowly combined with an imperious, majestic bearing that inspired awe. At that moment, Curtila and Zhang Lexuan stood at least 5 meters apart from Lu Jingming. Though Kurtilla had been summoned by Zhang Lexuan and had been around for a while, in her mind only a very small number of people were truly close, and Lu Jingming was not among them. Truth be told, Lu Jingming did like this pseudo-lowly empress, but he had yet to win her favor. By contrast, Kurtilla and Xia Dai got along well. Despite coming from different eras, Xia Dai respected the former leader of the Flaming Moth journey, and Kurtilla liked Xia Dai in turn. In an unfamiliar world, those with similar identities and origins tended to find common ground. As a half-god of law, Kurtilla's legal principles, formed from her understanding of law and careful study of Haiyuan City, were reliable. For Zhang Lexuan, learning from Kurtilla would be invaluable. Zhang Lexuan might one day need to act as an empress, even for a short time, and Kurtilla's experience in governance and leadership would be crucial. Lu Jingming watched Kurtilla and Zhang Lexuan walk away and let his thoughts drift to Ji Yingying's intelligence reports, all of which had come through Zhu Zi. Every move of the Sun Moon Empire seemed to be under Zhu Zi's control. Zhu Zi had graduated from the Sun Moon Royal Soul Engineer Academy and, on Shu Tianran's arrangement, entered the military. She seemed born for the field, naturally talented in military affairs, and quickly made a name for herself in the department. With Shu Tianran's support, she established a firm foothold. Even so, rising in a military full of strong figures would normally have taken time. Events, however, rarely followed scripts. Zhu Zi had been chosen by the Holy Grail and become a master. What shocked Lu Jingming most was the servant she had summoned. Unimaginably powerful, far surpassing Skirk and Kurtilla, even Raiden Mei seemed insignificant compared to it. With the help, or perhaps under the dominance of that servant, Zhu Zi not only consolidated her position in the military, but transformed from Shu Tianran's trusted subordinate into his closest collaborator. Shu Tianran had originally planned to give Zhu Zi the title of Crown Prince Consort so she could better control the military. But plans changed. Zhu Zi's servant was so overwhelming that the military department would soon fall almost entirely under her sway. Shu Tianran's attitude shifted from complete trust to a mix of caution and flattery. It was an amusing irony. Zhu Zi had earned his trust and become his most reliable subordinate, and yet, because she had summoned an immensely powerful servant, he grew wary. Still, Zhu Zi remained loyal and respectful to him. Weighing the benefits and risks, Shu Tianran adjusted his stance and made her more of an equal partner. He was a consummate schemer. He could tolerate and use even dangerous assets. Letting Zhu Zi control the military without heavy countermeasures showed how confident he was, likely because he, too, had been chosen by the Holy Grail and had a powerful servant of his own. It was under these circumstances that the Sun Moon Empire so boldly designated Mingdu as the battleground for the Holy Grail War. Lu Jingming could not help but marvel at their fortune. Given the roles Zhu Zi and Shu Tianran played in this world's fate, it made sense they became masters. That they drew ceiling-level servants, though, that was sheer luck. He wondered, half to himself, whether the Shu family's bloodline had changed over generations. Though the Shus may have been dark-skinned originally, through intermarriage their descendants' appearance had normalized. Maybe that shift affected their luck. Despite the power at her command, Zhu Zi had no intention of betraying the Wuchang division or Lu Jingming. In fact, she had secretly sent him a distress signal via an encrypted channel. The brief message he received carried palpable fear and helplessness. She was genuinely terrified of the servant she had summoned, far more fearful than when she had witnessed Shu Tianran's ruthless side. When Lu Jingming learned the servant's name, he nearly cursed aloud. How much negative energy had the Douluo Continent accumulated over 10,000 years to allow such a being to be summoned? The thought gave him a headache. His memory bank contained many problem children, characters who would cause trouble if brought into this world. If several of them were summoned, the Douluo Continent would become explosively chaotic. At the same time, a flicker of excitement stirred within him. Perhaps that was why he had not restricted the memory bank. He had always expected some unexpected events, even if that expectation contradicted his desire to stay low-key. Lu Jingming often felt conflicted. He wanted to develop quietly, but sometimes he longed to trigger a major upheaval. He wanted to control outcomes, yet he also looked forward to the unknown variables. That contradiction had led him to leave the memory bank open and allow random summons. He had forbidden himself from using background authority, so he did not know what Shu Tianran had summoned, but the fact that Shu Tianran showed no fear of Juzi's Most. Servant suggested his own servant was equally formidable. Intuition told him this was more likely. Shu Tianran was a major boss in the original work, and with his luck and skill, his servant would not be mediocre. If the original Douluo Three Kingdoms and Shrek Academy failed to summon servants able to contend, then the participants in this Soul Master competition in Mingdu stood to be crushed. Juzi's servant alone could wipe out many opponents. Shu Tianran's hidden servant could be yet another nightmare. Huo Yuhao was also in Shu Tianran's faction. Even though he had lost his status as a child of luck, most of his luck transferred to Lu Jingming. His original importance on Douluo Star made him a likely choice of the Holy Grail, and his servant would be powerful as well. "How exciting," Lu Jingming murmured, looking toward the east where dawn was breaking. A small smile touched the corner of his mouth. Being invincible by himself had always felt lonely. Now, with events taking this turn, he finally felt a measure of enjoyment. Chapter 254. The Scheming Yaemiko. Lu Jingming had just broken through to Spirit Saint and condensed his spirit core. The power surge left him unimaginably strong, and the idea of heading to Mingdu in a year filled him with anticipation. Carrying 2 meal boxes, he turned toward Yaemiko's room. As he moved, 7 blood-red spirit rings interlaced with golden lightning flared around him for an instant before vanishing. With both Douluo Continents developing and feeding back strength to him, the residue from condensing his god position had pushed his spirit rings to their maximum age. Both of his spirits now had fully maxed rings, and even he could not be certain how terrifying his full power would be. On the present Douluo Continent, among peers there was no one left who could rival him. Only the older generation could make him cautious. But the situation had changed. A flood of servants had been summoned, and some of them could actually give him a real fight. He had no confidence he could defeat Skirk, summoned by Bai Shu, and Kurtilla might also be beyond him. Lu Jingming was only a spirit saint. Those servants tended to start at enormous power levels, some near limit Douluo, some even at divine rank. The sheer number and caliber of these servants bothered him. It made sense that, after the Spirit Hall's fall and 10,000 years of decline, spirit beasts and many entire beast lineages had dwindled or gone extinct, letting negative energy accumulate on this planet. But the servant Juzi had summoned was of a different kind, implying the planet's negative energy was far greater than he had imagined. How could a single world produce so much negative energy? He mulled it over and found no answer. He wasn't even sure exactly how many servants had been summoned, only that it was certainly more than double digits. That many high-tier servants required an enormous, continuous flow of negative emotions. The source eluded him. In the end, Lu Jingming decided not to force the issue. These were problems for specialists like Herta and Mobius. His own priority was simpler: spend time with his wives. If he had to worry about everything, what was the point of summoning capable people? They weren't there just for looks. "This little guy is considerate," Yaemiko murmured, a small smile tugging at her lips as Lu Jingming fed her warm white porridge. She reclined lazily against the headboard, wrapped in a blanket, an amused gleam in her eyes. She showed no embarrassment, only the blanket covered her, suggesting the curve of her figure and the softness of her skin beneath. Although last night Lu Jingming had forced himself on her, much of it had been of her own making, so she had no regrets. In truth, she had enjoyed it, and she did not dislike him. The relationship had moved quickly, but she realized with a sly little satisfaction that she had stolen his first time. She pictured the little girls who fancied him finding out and relished the thought of their reactions. The idea made her smile with scheming delight as she accepted his feeding and let her thoughts wander. Far from such intimate scenes, the cold, soundless expanse of space rendered conventional noise meaningless, but a stellar explosion still flared blindingly bright. In that silent void, a black hole that had swallowed everything was torn apart by a titanic force. 6 great divine realms had collided, simulating a Big Bang. With Herta's external stellar detonation aiding them, the merged realms managed to tear free of the black hole, using the chaos power born from the rupture to burst into the starry sea. Herta casually gathered hundreds of threads of chaos power into her hand. The simulated Big Bang had yielded chaos only scantily, but even these hundreds of wisps were priceless. For a first-rank divinity, they would be enough to seize the chance to transcend God position and approach the realm of God King. The 6 great divine realms had also gathered some chaos during their escape, but to shield the God realm from catastrophic damage during the simulated Big Bang, they'd had to expend that reserve on defense. Still, by using the impact generated by the Big Bang, they were able to break free from the black hole. The God realm had been grievously wounded, but so long as its core and the divinities survived, it could recover. The forced merging of the 6 realms had, paradoxically, strengthened the God realm's foundation. Once healed, it might even advance further and threaten the legendary divine star. The moment the 6 great divine realms appeared in this star system, the Douluo God realm's central hub, the controller of the system, sensed the presence of other God realms. There was a natural pull between God realms. Devouring others was one path to greater strength. Though the 6 had not exactly consumed one another, their ultimate fusion had effectively achieved the same result by a different means. The goddess of life focused on operating the divine artifact tree of life to protect existence within the God realm, was the first divinity to notice the newcomers. In truth, she should have detected Herta's stellar detonation earlier, but the tumult of battle within the God realm had masked the subtle external fluctuations. Only when the 6 great divine realms entered the Douluo star system did the central hub sound an alarm that the goddess of life could no longer ignore. Her face went grave. She immediately transmitted the news by divine thought to the god of destruction and the others, who were locked in fierce combat with the Golden Dragon King and Ma Hongjun. The revelation froze the battlefield. Emotion god Rong Nianbing, the 2 great god kings of evil and goodness, and the god of destruction all instinctively halted, and the intricate rhythm of the fight snapped to a stop. Only Tang San, consumed by Asura god's wrath and hatred, paid the interruption no heed. He continued to assault the Golden Dragon King and Ma Hongjun with blind fury. Deprived of his teammates' support, Tang San suddenly found himself at a dire disadvantage. The Golden Dragon King and Ma Hongjun seized the chance to strike together. Extinguishing flame and the power of destruction hit him in combination. The double assault blasted Tang San like a meteor, sending him hurtling through several divine mountains and smashing through countless magnificent divine palaces. He had never expected his comrades to abandon the fight at such a critical moment, and was left bewildered and hurt by their sudden withdrawal. Sea God, the god of evil and the god of goodness, exchanged a look, awkwardness briefly showing on their faces. But the goddess of life's message left them no choice. With enemies like the Golden Dragon King and Ma Hongjun inside, and the 6 great divine realms loitering outside, the Douluo God realm now faced danger from within and without. They had to respond. Meanwhile, the 6 god kings, accompanied by their wives and the surviving divinities of their realms, stood before Herta with sincere faces and deep gratitude. They knew that without Herta's help, without her detonation, successfully simulating a Big Bang and escaping the black hole would have been far less likely and far costlier. Herta merely played with the small sphere of chaos light in her hand. "Helping you was convenient," she said lightly. "If you really want to thank me, go and do what you must. It doesn't matter if I give you temporary dominance over this star system." She was plainly fascinated by the chaos power born at the beginning of the universe, and held the glowing threads like a toy. Chapter 255, Goddesses of the God Realm. Miss Herta paid little mind to the gratitude of the 6 great divine realms. The operation had yielded a wealth of valuable data for her. Next time she attempted something as dangerous as detonating a black hole, she would be much more confident. In her eyes, black holes had become a unique resource. In this vast universe, perhaps only she refused to treat them with abject fear. After all, black holes were known as the tombs of the gods. Over countless eons, innumerable god realms had been swallowed by black holes, and the divinities lost within them were incalculable. Even many proud god kings had succumbed to that eternal darkness. The six great divine realms themselves had only narrowly escaped. If their plan to break out of the black hole had failed, they would have been lost as well. Only a minority ever managed to rush free. Most god realms and divinities were reduced to nothing, leaving only desperate laments echoing across the cosmos. Understood. For the time being, Light God King Changongwei said with a slight nod. The moment they emerged from the black hole, they'd noticed this star system was already occupied. Other god realms had claimed it. Their own realm was severely damaged and could not leave the system quickly. They had to stay and rebuild, drawing on the system's power of faith and psychic energy. Conflicts with the system's current owners were inevitable. Chang Gongwei understood why Miss Herta had phrased things the way she did. She was not a member of their realm and would not stop them from contesting the system's power of faith, but she belonged to another force and would return to claim sovereignty. So she had said she would temporarily hand leadership to them. Because she had saved their lives, they would eventually have to cede the system back. The six great divine realms' kings had no objection. They were not ungrateful. Temporary control was enough. Once their god realm recovered to a self-sustaining level, they could leave and seek a foothold elsewhere. Death God Adai, in particular, wanted to return home and could not remain indefinitely. But first they had to rebuild the realm's strength, and that meant gathering power. Bringing them into conflict with the Douluo god realm was unavoidable. I've scanned them. That god realm actually has 8 god king level energy signatures, and they're in combat now. Heavenly Emperor Tianhen's expression was focused. His hands blurred as he manipulated the void realm. Mysterious lights spun and coalesced into a vast viewing screen. He swept his hands across it, bringing the Douluo god realm's basic information into sharp clarity. 8! Incredible. This realm truly has deep foundations. Immortal Emperor Hailong exclaimed in astonishment, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had seen hardship. The 6 great divine realms had suffered so much. Most of their realms were clinging on with just a single god king. If it weren't for their temporary union, they would have lacked the confidence to contest sovereignty with so mighty an opponent. I feel rusted after being trapped in that black hole too long, Mad God Leixiang muttered, already donning his divine artifact, the Mad God armor. His eyes burned with fierce battle intent. For home! Death God Adai's voice was low and steady. He had no wish to invade, but to get back home he had no choice. A pitch-black longsword materialized in his hand, the Underworld King Sword, the most fearsome offensive divine artifact among the 6 great divine realms. A corrosive, terrifying aura dripped from the blade. If peaceful coexistence is possible, that would be best, Heavenly Emperor Tianhen said as he put on the demon god armor, a hint of helplessness in his eyes. Still, there was resolve beneath it. Miss Herta's wishes had made outright peace improbable. Even if they were being used, they were willing to fight as repayment for the life she had saved. Once their debt was repaid, they would owe her nothing. Ah, I hope this fight won't cost too many lives, Qin Emperor Ye Yinju said, worry evident on his face as he held the withered wood dragon roar zither. Though only a pseudo-divine artifact, in Ye Yinju's hands it was as potent as any true artifact. He feared the devastation and sacrifice the conflict could cause. No need to fight to the death, Light God King Chang Gongwei cautioned, gripping the holy light sword, whose blade shone with sacred brilliance. Our benefactor didn't ask us to annihilate the other side. We shouldn't do more than necessary. He suspected Miss Herta's intention had simply been to compel them to contend with the opposing god realm. She might not care about the final outcome. They must fight for what needed to be fought for, but avoid needless desperation. After all, they had only just escaped the black hole. All right, I'll lead the charge. Mad God Leixiang suddenly erupted in a storm of blood chi, so dense it seemed almost solid. The manifestation of his physical cultivation swelled. This blood chi rivaled even the Golden Dragon King's might. Clad in Mad God armor and empowered by his peak physical body, Leixiang's defenses were unparalleled. 12 silver-black fallen angel wings spread behind him as his entire form turned into a black streak of light, a whistling meteor that tore toward the Douluo god realm. That's the spirit. If we fight, let's do it cleanly and decisively. Immortal Emperor Hailong laughed. If they had decided on battle, why waste words? Let both sides clash and see who was superior. The victor would earn the right to rule. Clad in golden holy armor and bearing the Rui Jingu Bang, Hailong transformed into a brilliant golden streak and followed Leixiang without delay. Those two. Heavenly Emperor Tianhen shook his head, half exasperated and half worried. He traced a line through the void, opening a spatial passage that shimmered with light. Through it, the Douluo Godrealm scene was faintly visible. Did those two forget you specialize in the Tao of space? Qin Emperor Ye Yinju said with a wry smile, amusement in his eyes. Let's go. Light God King Chang Gongwei did not hesitate, leading by example as the chosen leader. He stepped into the spatial passage first. Adai, come back, Xuanyue called after Death God Adai. Her voice trembled with worry. The battle ahead was uncertain and dangerous. Adai paused, then nodded once, quietly firm. He offered no more words. His brief acknowledgement expressed everything. He entered the passage without looking back, his resolute back transmitting his determination to return home. Don't worry, Xuanyue, they'll come back safe. Muzimo, Chang Gongwei's wife, with long purple hair and an elegant chipao, came to comfort her. Her gentle eyes tried to soothe Xuanyue. Of course, my silly husband won't lose. Tianjin, Hailong's silver-haired, red-eyed wife, flashed a confident, domineering smile that seemed to chase away gloom. Xuanyue, with long blue hair and an ethereal air, let her worries ease under their words. If they had survived a black hole, what else could they not overcome? Most of the goddesses of the 6 great divine realms gathered at the edge of their god realm. They lacked the strength to intervene in a god-king duel, but they watched, praying silently for their husbands and companions. Everyone, count me in. Immortal Emperor Hailong's somersault cloud carried him faster than Leixiang's winged charge. He arrived in the Douluo god realm first. Without hesitation, he raised the Rui Jingu Bang overhead. It instantly expanded to titanic proportions, radiating blinding golden light. The staff smashed down directly upon Tang San, who had only just staggered free from the ruins of the divine palace. The blow to his head struck with the force of a splintering bamboo, intent on crushing every obstacle in its path. Chapter 256, 14 Divine Kings. Tang San, reeling from Xiao Wu's death, had already collapsed into madness. His eyes were bloodshot, reason consumed by rage and hatred. His usual calm, rational demeanor had vanished as if it had never existed. Facing the attack from Immortal Emperor Hailong, he did not hesitate. He raised the Asura blood sword, which pulsed with a savage, blood-soaked aura, and with a near maniacal intensity, slashed back at the Immortal Emperor. This old fox has truly lost his mind. Was Xiao Wu's loss really such a blow to him? God of emotion, Rong Nianbing's brows drew together. He could clearly feel the torrent of feeling in Tang San's heart. Anger and hatred had seized complete control, drowning out any vestige of reason. To Tang San, Xiao Wu had been the softest, most untouchable part of his soul. Once that was struck, he became an unstoppable force, troublesome. Rong Nianbing glanced at the spatial portal that had been opened and at the God Kings stepping through one by one. He felt the formidable qi radiating from their divine artifacts and could not help but twitch. The situation was turning more complicated by the moment. Guests are welcome, but why resort to violence? He murmured. The goddess of life looked bewildered. She could not understand why these arrivals had immediately joined the fray. One of them targeted sea god Tang San, another moved toward the Golden Dragon King. Clearly, they were not part of whatever conspiracy had arisen in the background. If they were, they would not have attacked the Golden Dragon King. She tried to intercede with words. A chaotic clash among god kings was a horror few had witnessed since the Dragon God War. Regardless of the outcome, the consequence for the entire god realm would be catastrophic. Sorry. Death God, Adai's face registered an apology, but his Pluto sword made no sign of stopping. With a flick of his wrist, jet-black sword qi burst forth. That qi carried pure, corrupting evil. Where it passed, life withered, as if space itself were being eaten away. Humph! The destruction god snorted coldly, a faint chill flashing in his eyes. His destruction scepter unleashed streaks of inky lightning, power that erased everything in its path. The black sword qi of the Pluto sword was was instantly annihilated. The two divine artifacts struck together violently in midair. The collision sent a surge of divine force rippling outward, sweeping across the god realm like a wave. It was so immense it seemed to threaten the realm itself. Mountains quaked, the land shuddered. What in the world is going on? Ning Rongrong clutched her head in despair as the God King melee exploded. She had never expected the situation to spiral so far out of control. What can we do? Juju Qing was equally at a loss. Looking at the chaos, they all knew they lacked the power to intervene in a God King battle, but they could not help worrying about Tang San and Ma Hongjun. Fatty is gone. He's not the Ma Hongjun we knew, Dai Mubai said with aching sadness. He understood that the former Ma Hongjun was dead. Standing now was a changed entity, the King of Pestilence. Oscar's voice was low and confused. He had never imagined that the Shrek 7 devils would come to this. The goddess of life sighed, helpless. The situation felt irreversible. Grinding her teeth, she had no choice but to join the battle. With her arrival, 14 God King level powerhouses surged from the God realm into the vast universe. The 14 divine kings fought a breathtaking, catastrophic battle among the stars. The shockwaves of their divine force shredded meteorites, split asteroids in two, and sent planetary fragments scattering like rain across the void. The spectacle was both grand and terrifying, attracting the attention of every god and godling across the realms. Even Miss Herta glanced over, drawn by the rare sight. An all-out clash of god kings was a million-year event, and its tremors were felt throughout the galaxy. As she observed the furious conflict among the 14 god kings, Miss Herta suddenly made a soft exclamation. Her acute senses had detected a familiar, special energy slowly spilling out from the black hole rift that had been blasted open earlier. Drawn by some force, it was converging on a particular planet in the starry sky, Douluo star. This is interesting. Her expression shifted from surprise to sudden understanding. With her sharp mind, she pieced the events together almost at once. The energy from the black hole was the negative energy she knew well. Black holes in this cosmos were long called tombs of the gods. Countless god realms and divinities had once been swallowed by them. In the dying throes of a divinity, or when a realm was destroyed, vast negative energy would be produced and, until now, remained trapped inside the black hole. By happenstance, Miss Herta had blasted the black hole open in this galaxy, and at the same time, Douluo star possessed a treasure capable of attracting and receiving that very negative energy, the Holy Grail she had personally made. The massive, twilight-born negative energy within the black hole was now flowing toward Douluo star. In a sense, this was not entirely bad. Once the Holy Grail purified that negative energy, it would become nourishment for the planet's evolution. Douluo star might be about to absorb the precious legacies of countless fallen god realms and, if it could digest them, take a leap to become a divine star. No one could know exactly how many god realms had perished inside that black hole or how much negative energy had accumulated. All that was clear was that the power heading for Douluo star was more than enough to support a dramatic evolutionary leap. But Ms. Herta also understood the darker side. Such an influx of negative energy would profoundly affect Lu Jingming's Holy Grail War. The summoned servants might grow far stronger under that endless supply of negative energy. Who knew what unimaginable monsters could be called forth? She dismissed that worry quickly. In her view, those servants were nothing but memory bodies condensed from negative energy. So long as they did not summon the star gods from her world, it would pose no real threat. As for summoning a star god, opening a new path in the universe, it was an event of universe-shaking proportions that would require an enormous reservoir of true power. Unless Lu Jingming was willing to pour vast amounts of true power into the Holy Grail, the likelihood was slim. Star gods represented entirely new Daos. Creating one would be akin to birthing a new creator. The true power necessary for such a feat would be so enormous that even if Lu Jingming were utterly drained, it might still be insufficient. Lu Jingming himself had no idea. He could not know that the unexpectedly wild turn the Holy Grail War was taking, monstrous servants and all, was rooted in Ms. Herta's blasting open of the black hole near Douluo star. The negative energy had been drawn there by the World Tree and the Holy Grail. Ms. Herta had not yet returned. and the timing differences between the God Realm and the Douluo Continent hid the truth from him. He could not have imagined how absurd and unpredictable his lightly planned Holy Grail war might become with that endless well of negative energy feeding it. Night spread like black silk across the world. In that silence, Lu Jingming slipped quietly into Zhang Lexuan's boudoir. He had painstakingly arranged for Xiadi to keep Kurtilla distracted. How could he let such a rare opportunity pass? Chapter 257, Taking a Bath. Little Ming. When she eased the door open and saw Lu Jingming standing in the doorway, a flash of pleasant surprise lit Zhang Lexuan's eyes. A faint blush warmed her cheeks, softening the cool reserve that usually sat on her face. Ever since Keqing had been taken away by Ye Miko on some pretext, Lexuan had suspected Lu Jingming was behind it. She knew him well, had watched him grow up, and could easily guess what he wanted. She had been waiting for this moment for a long time, even though Ye Miko had interrupted her once before. "Sister Lexuan," he answered. Tonight, Lexuan wore a pristine white gown that flowed like moonlight. The fabric was light and fine, and the exposed calves beneath it were smooth and pale, catching the soft lamplight. Lu Jingming loved her unique, ethereal coolness. The thought of that composure yielding to passion made his chest burn with a hot, urgent longing. He stepped forward with practiced gentleness, closed the door behind him, and then, as if by instinct, wrapped his arms around her and lowered his head to kiss her. "Wait!" Carried horizontally by him, Lexuan suddenly steadied herself. She reached out, lightly pushing him back, voice threaded with both panic and shyness. "I'll take a bath first." Lu Jingming could still smell her faint, alluring scent even without a bath, but he understood not to rush. There was plenty of time tonight. No need to spoil it by impatience. Inside the bathroom, steam filled the air like a thin veil, lending everything a dreamlike quality. Through the mist, Lexuan's form showed like an ink wash, pale skin highlighted by beads of water that tracked down her long dark hair, along the graceful line of her neck, across the delicate slope of her collarbones, and melted into the humid air at her chest. The steam made her skin look dewy and soft, as if it could bruise under a touch. Lexuan closed her eyes and hummed a gentle melody she had learned from a robin. Her voice floated through the small room like a clear brook. She let herself sink into the moment, breathing slowly and evenly, hands moving over her body with a light, almost reverent touch. A fresh, floral scent, natural and sweet, mixed with the steam and filled the bathroom. When she stepped out, wrapped in a soft bathrobe, her wet hair fell over her shoulders like black silk, and droplets still clung to the ends. The post-bath glow colored her cheeks pleasantly. "Little Ming, I'm done. Your turn." She dried her hair with a towel and looked at him with an affectionate glance that said it all. Lu Jingming had watched her through the frosted glass earlier and had barely contained himself, but he held back now. He appreciated savoring every moment with her. Rushing would ruin it. He let the warm bathwater stand and slid into the tub, letting the heat wash the last of his tension away. He emerged wearing a loose robe. In the bedroom, Lexuan lay on the large bed, waiting. The thin bathrobe clung like a whisper to her figure, tracing every graceful curve. The neckline had slid open enough to reveal a strip of pale skin along her collarbones that made it impossible for him not to want more. He moved in, eyes bright with desire. He took her wrist, a little possessive, and drew her to him, pulling her into his arms. Then, without ceremony, he pressed her down to the mattress. Her hands raised, palms splayed against the soft fabric. Leaning close, he murmured against her earlobe, "Sister Lexuan, I might be a little rough tonight. Bear with me." Lexuan opened her mouth to answer, but when his mouth found her earlobe, she shivered as if struck by a current. She bit down on her lower lip to keep from making any sound. The light touch sent a thrill through her that blurred the edges of her vision and made her breath catch. She tried to struggle, but found her strength ebbing, leaving her pleasantly weak. Lu Jingming's hands moved over her body with restless hunger, sometimes stroking, sometimes kneading with more insistence. Each touch felt like a key turning in a lock deep inside her, stirring tides of sensation mingled with a flush of shame she couldn't name. Chapter 258, Combat Weakling, Zhang Lexuan. Only after Zhang Lexuan had adjusted to the discomfort did Lu Jingming make his move. Soon the room filled with music, the the soft clatter of cards, and the sound of applause, together forming the most beautiful melody in the world. Though it couldn't match Robin's otherworldly voice, Zhang Lexuan's singing line was equally beguiling, clear and pleasant as a mountain spring, flowing with tenderness and quiet emotion. But in a direct contest, Zhang Lexuan was undeniably weaker than Yaemiko. Lu Jingming hadn't even begun to deploy his full range of techniques, and many of the tricks he'd prepared for her remained unused, when Zhang Lexuan could no longer take it. She softly begged for mercy and surrendered the unequal contest almost immediately. Watching her now, sleeping soundly on the luxurious bed with a serene smile, Lu Jingming couldn't help but smile. He truly hadn't expected Lexuan, usually as aloof as an immortal, to be so vulnerable in this arena. Assessment: she's a combat weakling. After all, Yaemiko had been able to hold her own when he'd really tried, even when he brought out every package. Zhang Lexuan, though she had just broken through to become a titled Douluo, seemed to lack the same resilience. People's constitutions vary, sometimes dramatically. Lu Jingming wrapped his arms around Zhang Lexuan's soft, delicate body, treating her like the most precious treasure. He buried his face in the cloud-like warmth, inhaled her faint fragrance, and closed his eyes, savoring the moment. Zhang Lexuan's figure was nearly flawless. Every curve and line seemed sculpted by nature's finest hand, inspiring admiration. "General," someone called. In Xiaodai's room, Curtilla stared intently at the chessboard. Her slender fingers moved a piece with precision. The piece landed, and she had checkmated Xiaodai. "I lost," Xiaodai said softly, as if she had expected it. In Haiyuan City, there were few who could beat Curtilla at chess. Even Changli usually lost more often than she won. "Your mind wasn't on the game. Are you very concerned? Then why did you help him?" Curtilla asked without much expression. With her intelligence, it wasn't hard for her to see that Xiaodai had been instructed by someone to draw her away from Zhang Lexuan. Curtilla could guess who was behind it, but she'd noticed that Zhang Lexuan seemed eager to be alone with that person, so Curtilla had not refused and had followed Xiaodi without protest. Still, she'd picked up on Xiaodai's preoccupation with what was happening in Zhang Lexuan's room, and that puzzled her. Xiaodi pursed her lips, conflicted. Could she say she was envious? How could she voice something so shameful? "All right, I understand. What charm does that person have to make you all so infatuated?" Curtilla toyed with the chess pieces. Among the people she'd met, many remarkable girls had fallen for Lu Jingming, girls who were outstanding in skill, temperament, and looks. The fact that such a collection of excellence was devoted to the same man intrigued Curtilla. That Xiaodi was even willing to help him get close to other women only deepened her curiosity. As for whether she herself would fall, impossible. She was Empress Curtilla. Commanding armies, crafting strategies, and treating the world like a chessboard were far more fitting pursuits than trifling affairs of the heart. "You don't understand," Xiaodi whispered, her mind drifting. Lu Jingming was the first and only person who had given her warmth. The feeling of being held in his arms had settled over her like a harbor after a long drift in darkness. If a single embrace could intoxicate her so completely, what would more intimate, more passionate contact do? She felt both longing and regret for her earlier hesitation that had cost her a chance. In that moment, she envied Yaemiko and Zhang Lexuan. Hesitation leads to defeat. Once you decide, you must act decisively. On the battlefield, indecision is the greatest taboo, Curtilla said, seeing Xiaodai's distress and offering blunt counsel in her own way. "Thank you, Caesar. I understand." Xiaodi reminded herself that it was her indecision that had let an opportunity slip away, allowing Yaemiko to gain an unexpected advantage. Determination flashed in her eyes. She had resolved to find the right moment to lay her feelings on the table and stop holding back. The next morning, warm, soft sunlight poured into the room like a golden veil. The light danced across the carpet as if countless little sprites were holding a celebration, bringing warmth and life to the chamber. On the uniquely styled bed, moon-white silk sheets gleamed with a serene, elegant luster. Beneath the smooth velvet duvet, a man and a woman lay pressed close, their faces bathed in gentle light and the world around them still. Under the duvet, Zhang Lexuan rested like a lazy cat, her head on Lu Jingming's arm. Her long, fair legs were casually draped over his, an intimate, natural posture. When the sun's warmth touched her face, Zhang Lexun stirred and slowly opened her eyes. Chapter 259, Overtime. Zhang Lexun sat up groggily. As she moved, the quilt slipped down, revealing her flawless skin and the telltale marks left from the night before. The bruises and impressions were mute testimony to Lu Jingming's enthusiasm. Just as he'd warned, he hadn't been particularly gentle. She stretched, languid and graceful, and glanced down at the handiwork on her body with a faint frown. Then she rolled her eyes and shot Lu Jingming an annoyed look as he opened his own eyes. "Xiaoming, that was too much. I thought I was going to die." Her voice was playful, a mock scolding full of softness and a trace of laziness, like a little girl reprimanding the one she cherished. Lu Jingming found it amusing. He sat up, pulled her into his arms, and planted a light kiss on her cheek, smiling indulgently. "My fault. I shouldn't have been so rough. I just didn't expect you to be so fragile. I hadn't even gotten serious yet, and you were practically waving the white flag." Lexuan's eyes widened in mortification and indignation. She had not expected him to put it so bluntly. Her performance the previous night was embarrassing to remember. She'd always cultivated an image of maturity and composure, and being teased like this felt humiliating. Lu Jingming's amused chuckle only added to her chagrin. He could hardly believe the cool, otherworldly woman he'd known could be so vulnerable behind closed doors. "You're terrible. You're not allowed near me for a week. No, 3 days." She spat, punching his chest lightly with tiny, delicate fists more in theatrics than in anger. Lu Jingming only laughed and indulged her. He'd seen that childish side of her a handful of times when she was small. Otherwise, she was always composed, almost painfully mature. "Fine, I'll let you rest for 3 days," he said, though he knew she really did need the time. Last night had been draining. They stepped into the bathroom. After the intensity of the previous evening, they were both sticky with sweat and in need of a proper wash. Lu Jingming turned on the shower. Warm water cascaded like rain, and they both sighed as fatigue and tension rinsed away. Zhang Lexuan felt weak from the exertion and leaned against him, completely trusting him to support her. As he carefully washed her, an awkward, shy thought crossed her mind, so mortifying she wished she could disappear. "Xiaoming, were you satisfied last night?" She knew, plainly, that she herself had been satisfied. No, thoroughly satisfied. She had experienced his strength fully. But still, remembering how she'd faltered, she worried she hadn't pleased him completely. A truly thrilling intimacy, she thought, should be like Lu Jingming and Ye Miko's, where both sides are evenly matched and can savor every moment. Her performance felt only adequate. If she had to sum up her feelings, "I'm sorry, Lord Lu Jingming, for not letting you use your full strength." Her memory drifted back to the whispered, embarrassing things she'd said into his ear as she clung to him. Heat rushed to her face. She covered it with both hands, cheeks flaming. "How many humiliating things did I say?" She fretted silently. Lu Jingming found her adorably mortified, a sharp contrast to her usual cool demeanor. That contrast lit a new spark in him. Mourning, after all, tended to stir a man's desires, and since he'd left something unsatisfied the night before, and because she was now so sweetly shy, he couldn't hold back. That morning in the bathroom offered Zhang Lexuan several firsts. For the first time, she spent a long while in a certain position on the marble countertop of the wash basin. For the first time, she learned that kneeling on tiled floors for too long left bright, red marks on her knees, like a vivid reminder of what had just passed. After that overtime session, Lu Jingming left Zhang Lexuan's room feeling content and refreshed. Despite being a little yielding, she was obedient and willing. She could be persuaded to do almost anything. Today, St. Freya Academy carried on its quiet prestige. Still slightly less famed than Shrek Academy, it remained one of the top schools on the Douluo Continent and had been drawing students from across the lands in recent years. Its rising popularity owed much to its first-rate cultivation facilities and exceptional living conditions. Dormitories were top-notch, multi-person rooms with private bedrooms, and the cafeteria was unique. Bright, spacious, and offering customizable meals, so students could tailor dishes to their tastes and nutritional needs. The academy didn't skimp on cultivation resources either. Advanced training grounds, rare aid items, and popular holographic combat systems drew many who loved the thrill of battle. For downtime, the leisure areas were exquisitely designed. Tranquil gardens, clear lakes, and gracefully placed pavilions and towers gave students places to relax and recover between rigorous training sessions. In terms of overall enjoyment and comfort, it was no exaggeration to say St. Freya Academy had already surpassed most other schools on the Douluo Continent. Chapter 260, Xingjunya. All the enviable treatment at St. Freya Academy began with Lu Jingming's design. In his previous life, he had endured 8 people crammed into a tiny dorm, no air conditioning in the summer, queuing for the latrine, and tasteless cafeteria food. That experience left an impression. A good learning and living environment matters. So at St. Freya Academy, he raised every standard to the extreme. With his current resources, the investment was little trouble. Lu Jingming understood that if students were treated well and enjoyed comfortable, fulfilling years at the academy, they would remember it after graduation and be far more likely to choose to work for him later. He had always been generous to those willing to stake their lives for him. Only by truly taking care of people could one win their loyalty. He spared no expense cultivating students, upgrading every aspect: learning, cultivation, combat training, daily life, and the environment. These measures helped St. Freya rise to the top of the continent's academies in under a decade. Winning the All-Continent Advanced Spirit Master Academy Douluo tournament twice in a row only added proof of St. Freya's strength. In a world that revered spirit strength, the power an academy displayed was everything. Backed by the influence of Haiyuan City and formidable resources, St. Freya became a pilgrimage site for many aspiring spirit masters. Now, in one of the academy's vast practical training grounds, an intense clash was drawing a crowd. Hundreds of students watched spellbound, eyes fixed on the center of the field. Frost-white sword chi crisscrossed the air, leaving ice patterns on the ground like frozen flowers. A petite, black-haired, fox-eared young woman wielded a katana, her movements light and agile, so swift she left afterimages. Her blade traced dazzling arcs in the void. Exquisite forms flowed naturally: windflower, frost moon, deep flying snow. Each technique released without reserve, every motion both beautiful and lethal. Opposite her stood an extraordinary tall, blonde young woman with a white riding spear. The spear's tip flashed coldly as she met the frosty sword chi without flinching, shattering each sealing strike. The spear was wielded as if weightless. Every swing carried a biting chi, sweeping like a whirlwind. Both combatants were not only supremely skilled, but strikingly attractive. The fox-eared swordswoman carried a cold, mysterious air, while the tall blonde radiated heroic valor. Their dazzling duel had drawn most of the students. Those who heard the commotion streamed over to watch. Ji Yingying, standing to the side, stared in wide-eyed admiration. The swordswoman's skill shocked him. Though her weapon and style were different from his, it was unmistakably swordsmanship, and one he had never seen before. It differed completely from the style Jingliu had taught him, but her level of attainment was clearly above his. Maybe not quite on par with Jingliu, but placed across the Douluo Continent, she was certainly a ceiling-level existence. Lu Jingming, drawn by the excitement, drifted to the edge of the training ground. He watched the two duel calmly, unsurprised. These kinds of high-intensity confrontations between the academy's top fighters were nothing new. "Meng!" he called, and walked over to where Meng Hongqian stood, casually glancing at the command token in her hand. "Ming, you're here." Meng Hongqian looked up in surprise and happiness. She reached out and looped her arm through Lu Jingming's, hugging it with easy familiarity. The display stirred envious looks from the nearby students, but none dared interrupt. Meng Hongqian's beauty was top tier at the academy, and older students all knew she was spoken for. She was the academy's #1 genius and Lu Jingming's girlfriend, the city lord of Haiyuan City. Newcomers could be bold, but they still had to get past Meng Hongqian and the checkpoints of Lu Jingming's loyal aides. Within St. Freya, there were reserve members of the Enforcement Guard and the Fools, people who had passed stringent loyalty tests and fusion procedures, utterly devoted to Lu Jingming. In their eyes, Meng Hongqian was Lu Jingming's private person. Others had no right to approach her, and they would protect anyone close to him without hesitation. Besides Meng Hongqian, students like Wang Chuer, Ye Gai, Lan Susu, and Lanluoluo enjoyed similar untouchable status simply because of their proximity to Lu Jingming. His followers didn't care about the exact nature of each relationship, only that it was special. "How's young Miss Ya getting along with you?" Lu Jingming asked, pinching Meng Hongchen's cheek affectionately. "She's great," Meng Hongchen replied, pouting a little. "But she loves strange cultivation methods, like now, an all-out fight with Yulandir." She sounded a bit exasperated. Meng Hongchen had summoned the servant Xingjianya after becoming a master. Xingjianya was powerful, with an agreeable personality and excellent compatibility with her. The problem was that Xingjianya was particularly keen on unconventional training methods, which sometimes left Meng Hongchen scratching her head. Lu Jingming chuckled softly. Xingjianya's taste for strange cultivation had a lot to do with her childhood. He watched the duel a moment longer, expression calm. In this academy, the best way to temper an extraordinary talent could always be to let them test themselves against worthy opponents, and Xingjianya had clearly found one in Yulandir.